I thought the bass guitar was Grapefruit for a second. No, that's me going choppa-dappa-dooba at the beginning. What do they say at the beginning? There they are, actually. Choppa-dappa-dooba. What are they saying? Doesn't sound like English. It's obviously a sample. I would, you know, a lot of samples used... I guess I can leave it playing. A lot of samples used in this era of gaming history can be tracked down, their origins found, so I wonder if that's one that's known, perhaps. I know this very same album has the Causing Much Mayhem, Dropping Drama sample in it. I don't think it has In the House Like Carpet, unfortunately. Welcome back to Reviews, everybody. This may be the end. This may be, you know, kind of the end. I think I'm gonna get caught up today, if everything goes according to plan, at least, which is an exciting prospect. My brain is a little frazzled just from streaming so much the past few days. Deltarune Overload, Mario Kart Overload. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm kind of tripping over my words sometimes today. I did a little bit of Yellow Baby Buggy Bumpers, I did a little bit of Red Leather, Yellow Leather before the stream, so hopefully I'm good, but I was like, sometimes I do a little bit of practice talking and I was like, whoa, some of the shit that I'm saying, and some of the shit I was saying in the last stream that we did, the Deltarune stream, I was like, man, I'm out of it. So hopefully I can keep it together. But we're gonna do one final non-caught up review stream, and then we will finally be able to declare this series no longer ongoing, and it will become open-ended. First off, though, I'd like to thank the anonymous artist who sent in this art on the Buru. We love to see mixed mediums, or I guess not mixed, but we love to see varying mediums on the Buru. Really cool stuff. I'm honored to think that somewhere out there on a sidewalk there is my silly channel logo. And it looks good. You did good with the chalk, Anon, so thank you. There are some times that I've thought about... is this stupid? Maybe this is like the dumbest thing ever. This is like maybe super cringe to confess to, but sometimes when I walk into like a bathroom stall or whatever that has just a bunch of like drawings on all the walls, I'm always like, should I like bring a pen places and put my little logo places? But that's so stupid. Like GF was here, you know? I remember in, gosh, high school, I think there were some times where I used to draw Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls in bathroom stalls with a pencil. I would do it with a pencil, and I would just hide him in like weird places in bathrooms. I don't know why I would do that. There was a bathroom in the Value Village in, I want to say, Redmond, in Washington, that had a Bill Cipher on it for like years, actual years. I don't know, it might still be there. So thank you to this artist. And we're gonna do reviews. I'm just gonna leave the Street Fighter 3 AST going because we're gonna be talking about Street Fighter 3, and it's a good hunk of music that we can listen to without YouTube's playlists breaking. However, I had to open it in an incognito tab. I know I complain about YouTube playlists a lot, but they just keep breaking in new and exciting ways. It wouldn't load the playlist properly in a non-incognito tab, so that's what we're doing, I guess. Cringe adults don't come from nowhere. Grapefruit was a cringe kid. You guys would have hated me. I mean, if you even like me now, thanks for that huge dose of imposter syndrome that I just was engulfed by, guys. I really liked that. Really good feeling. Yeah, I mean, I was like a cringy band kid. What are some cringe things about me? I was pretty, like, I don't know. I use the word cringe a lot now, but I exemplified cringiness. In junior high in particular. I listened to dubstep, like really like cringy dubstep slop. I had this huge set of headphones that were like earmuff headphones with this enormous cable that was like, they were like studio headphones, and I would keep the cable draped around my neck like a scarf, kind of. Let's see, what else? I could lore dump for ages. Did I ever tell you guys about the meme wall? I'm sure I've talked about this before, but when Rage faces, like Rage comics, I guess is what they were called, when they were all the rage, as they say, me and my friends made this huge mural on the walls of one of our school. On the walls of one of our schools. See, that's the kind of sentences that I'd be cooking up in this current state. One of our schools, you know, hallway walls, we just printed on, like, you know, 8.5 by 11 printer paper a bunch of memes from like 2011 and shit, and just made this enormous mural of memes that kept getting updated, and it was like it kept getting torn down, and then we would put ones up that were like, Trollface, you mad? Le meme wall returns and stuff. It was awesome. There was a poster, I'm sure I've talked about this in the past, there was a poster that said celebrate diversity, and it was a big long rainbow poster, and me and my friend made an enormous neon cat to stick on the end of it. And it actually, I mean, honestly, we kind of cooked with that one, I'm not gonna lie. It's like I look back at this and I don't even know if I have any regrets. Cringe adults gotta come from somewhere. So Grapefruit ran for the school lunch when the bell rang. Not exactly. No. Lunch slapped, though. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the computer lab during lunch breaks playing Flash games. I had a flash drive loaded up with a bunch of games, and we would play like classic Binding of Isaac and shit. Yeah, it was just getting it out of my system. Haha. Yeah, I'm not cringe now. Haha. Anyway. That's an aside. Welcome back to reviews. There's one game that we've played that was actually new since the last stream, and that's Mario Kart World, which I've only played a little bit of, and I've watched Bella play the single-player exploration stuff. It's certainly a cool game. I feel like this rating is not going to be super prestigious because I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but Bella was saying, oh, this doesn't replace Mario Kart 8, but honestly, I don't see myself going back and playing Mario Kart 8 too much. Maybe sometimes for, like, the courses, some of the, like, specific tracks in that game, but, I'm not, like, the biggest Mario Kart fiend as it is. As is the term. Nobody says as it is. So my opinion on this is going to be a little lukewarm, but it's fun, it's polished. I see it as pretty comparable to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's just got some new gimmicks, and it's got the open world thing, which is cool. I can appreciate that from afar without actually wanting to engage very much with the exploration aspect of it. I just personally don't really care. I don't really see a reason to do it. I'm not the kind of guy who's like, oh, I gotta like unlock every costume. Like, no, I just want to unlock the stupid little scrimblows. I want to be able to play as the fish skeleton and make urethra jokes, and that's it. So I'm definitely a casual Mario Kart enjoyer, but it is fun. The controls are good. I like the wall riding and rail riding. I know we didn't see very much of that in the stream that we did because I was just struggling to integrate that stuff into the, you know, gameplay, but I've gotten a little bit more of a hang of it now, and it's fun. I'm sure there's all sorts of crazy shit. It kind of seems like this game, I know I say this a lot about Mario Kart, like Mario Kart 8 honestly wasn't super conducive to like sweatlords, but I feel like playing Mario Kart World as a casual Mario Kart enjoyer, like playing it online is gonna be hellish in like a year. You know, right now it's probably fine, but when like the normies kind of thin out and it's only the people who are like super dedicated Mario Kart players are left, it's gonna be scary playing this game because there's just so much crazy shit that you can do. I don't want an ad. See, it's incognito mode, so I'm getting an ad. Fuck. can you work in normal YouTube yet? One moment. Just work, why don't you? It's doing the same thing. It's like loading the video, but none of the other stuff. And it's like, I need the playlist. I literally need the playlist. Oh, what a nightmare. Even just the most simple shit. I think YouTube in and of itself is just like down. Because I'm trying to go to YouTube's homepage and it just looks like blank thumbnails. Anyone else having this? Is YouTube down? Because the fact of the matter is, it's working in incognito mode. How does that happen? Ad blockers are great. You're like 20 steps behind me right now. I have an ad blocker. You can enable extensions to work in incognito? Actually did not know that. Put me in a box and blow me up. I'm owned. I should do that. Extensions. Manage extensions. I had no clue that was a thing. Everybody else is saying it's working fine. It's been down for me for like an hour. But again, it's working, like it's loading a video when I post a link in there, but none of the other information, not the title, not related thumbnails, not the sidebar, anything else. It's whack. You know what I might just do is play MP3s. Let me just... because I have this whole arranged soundtrack downloaded. Give me just one moment. Sorry, guys. Maybe it's just like, man, just like stop fucking trying to use YouTube to listen to music. It just like doesn't work. There's just always going to be issues. Street Fighter 3, New Generation AST. Here we go. This should work. Okay. Is it working? This song starts out very quiet, but yeah, okay, it is. Nice. All right. That's fine. We got a solution. Back to the reviews. So Mario Kart World, I'm scared of what the fucking, like, sweatlords are gonna cook up with this one. Because I just feel like with the way the tracks are laid out, it's gonna be crazy. I appreciate, you know, I don't want to lean too heavily into speculation on where Nintendo's going next, but I kind of feel like after, just in terms of, like, their big franchises, like Mario Kart and Smash Bros. And shit, we might be facing currently an era of scaling back a little bit and like diverting course, because in the Wii U and Switch era there was kind of this whole there was a vibe of like ultimate games, you know, Smash Ultimate and like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where it's just got what, like 100 courses basically, like 96 or something. And I think a lot of those stuff like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, stuff like Smash Ultimate, the common question is, how do you even follow that up when it's just got so much content in it? And the answer is kind of like divert course and do something a little bit different, which I appreciate personally. I'm not a maximalist when it comes to video games. I like clean, well-explored concepts rather than enormous glut of content, just in general. I mean, I liked Mario Kart 8 Deluxe plenty, but I kind of like that they didn't try to out Mario Kart 8, Mario Kart 8. They kind of just went for something a little bit different. Still playing it relatively safe. It's Nintendo. It's not too crazy different. It's not a huge change from the formula, but just enough to spice it up and keep it interesting. I think this was, that sort of design is a shrewd move in terms of design and possibly, you know, business as well. Some might even say that you don't ever want to make a kind of game that has such a glut of content that everybody's asking, how do you follow this up? Some would think that that maybe is unwise. But yes, I would recommend, it's $80. I don't talk about price too much because, again, this is enjoyment, not necessarily all the politics surrounding the game. But it's so easy to say for so many other games, wait for it to go on sale if you don't like the price. But genuinely, you never know with Nintendo. It might be $80 till the day we all die. Like, it's really quite the unknown. So we'll see what happens with the price situation. It's unfortunate, but I'm kind of in the middle when it comes to the pricing of video games. Like, big AAA games like this cost a lot of money to make. I know Nintendo is not exactly, you know, Mickey Mouse slicing the transparently thin slice of bread gif poor right now or anything, but I kind of get how with inflation a game's price would go up over the years. And when games increase in price, it's always going to be like by a certain threshold rather than steadily increasing with inflation rates. So this might just be like one of the first games out of the gate to make this price change that's gonna like take the brunt of the heat for it. But I don't necessarily think it's that ridiculous. I also understand why people are upset, so I hate to be a disgusting centrist on this issue, but I kind of see both sides. Anyway, I'd probably rate it about the same in terms of enjoyment as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I really do like the way all the levels kind of like flow into each other. We didn't explore it on stream yet, but I saw it off stream. The like continuous modes, I think it's called like Knockout Battle Royale or something. That stuff's very cool, where you just continually race and it just smoothly is like, boom, you're in Toad Road, boom, you're in Moo Moo Meadows, you know, boom, you're in Bowser's Jungle Japeyard. Very cool stuff. I think it's a pretty fresh, cool, new direction to take the series as a confessed, you know, casual at the, you know, Mario Kart franchise as a whole. Okay, now we can move on. We've got some stuff from the fighting game series to cover here. I'm not going to go super in-depth on these because I also don't necessarily know a ton about these kinds of games, but enough to say how much I enjoyed them at least. Let me just close some tabs here. Unfortunately, autoplay is not like happening, but that's fine. I can manually select the next song, and all the songs on this soundtrack are like 5 minutes long, so I'm not really gonna need to manually do it that much. Still a little annoying, but whatever. Is DK not a launch title? No. No, really, the only big Nintendo first-party title is Mario Kart. The fucking Dragon Drive isn't even on release. It's just Mario Kart World and the $10 pack-in game. Which I heard, Bella was like, oh yeah, we should actually pick that up. I heard it was good. It's got like a secret game hidden in it. Secret good game that's worth $10. That shit, I love how everybody hates that game is paid. Just like nobody is chill with that. Even when I was like, when we were waiting in line to get the Switch 2, everybody in the line was talking about how that's like, it's bullshit that's not a pack-in game. Okay, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. This has gotta be my favorite Street Fighter game. Even after playing the more modern ones that, you know, have better graphics and more pixels on Ryu's face, I think it's just such a perfect style for a fighting game like this. They nailed the tone. This is obviously the third version. I mean, I guess it's not obvious if you don't really know much about Street Fighter, but this is the third edition of this game. We also played a little bit of Second Impact. I don't think I streamed New Generation, but I've played a little bit of New Generation as well. It's just like Street Fighter 2, where they're basically just different versions of the game. It's easy to say, you know, oh, the later ones are just straight improvements, but the kind of unfortunate thing about these versions of Street Fighter games is that there is content that is left behind. Like, there are stages and music and other little tidbits that are left behind in the previous versions of the games, so that's why I think Second Impact might even get a yes recommendation here, just because it's like worth checking out if you're a casual fighting game enjoyer, and if you have the 30th Anniversary Collection, it's pretty easy to play any of the versions of these games, so keep that in mind. I would recommend Third Strike just right off the bat, and I guess I'll type a yes for Second Impact as well. I know earlier versions of early Street Fighter games are always less balanced, usually at least. I can't speak to balance too much. I'm just a casual, I just press buttons and see what happens. But the presentation, the art style, the music, everything about the way Third Strike presents itself, and Second Impact by extension, is just fantastic. It's just so vibrant and cool, and I really am sad that the series went 3D after this. I would love if they made another Street Fighter game for it to be it doesn't have to be like pixel art, but just in that kind of modern, Guilty Gear Strive, or Dragon Ball FighterZ kind of has a similar thing, right? Where it's 3D, sure, technically, but it looks and is stylized like 2D. I would really appreciate if they went back to that. I know they're probably not going to. I know every Street Fighter game that ever gets made after this is probably just going to look like Tekken, and I just have to accept that. But I'm personally a little bitter about that, because looking at Third Strike, I'm like, it's so gorgeous. And imagine how much they could cook with, even higher resolution 2D sprites like this. But I've heard, somebody said to me the other day, they were like, it's just like the animated film industry. There's just not that many people who are like well-versed in making, there's not like trained professionals as much as there used to be who know how to make really great 2D sprite art, so it's a shame. But that's also not to say, human beings are capable of innovating, even if they're not like, working on an industry that's all classically trained in a specific thing. So who knows what could happen in the future, but I would love to see them return to a similar art style to this that's kind of more cartoony, anime kind of art style. I just think that works really well for Street Fighter. The gameplay is also great, very satisfying hit sound effects. I love parrying. A lot of Street Fighter games have sort of extra systems ever since Street Fighter 2. Like, I guess Street Fighter 2 introduced a bunch of stuff, but that kind of like laid out the groundwork. Street Fighter 3 had parrying and not a lot else that was super different. I guess it had EX moves. Were EX moves in Street Fighter 2? I honestly don't know. Maybe they were. But then there's all sorts of other shit. Like looking at Street Fighter 5, for instance, there's like V skill, V trigger, V shift. And Street Fighter 6, you got all this stuff with like drive impact and drive shift, full forward tilt. I'm making shit up. But I kind of don't like the more, I know they're not super complex, but I'm not a big fan of the like later systems that they would do in some of the later games. But parrying in Third Strike is something that any chimpanzee holding a controller can understand. Tap forward to parry the attack, and I guess there's the whole like parrying up or down or forward, but that's slightly complicated. But it's something that anyone can pick up and understand pretty easily, and that makes it accessible to fighting game normies like me. So, exclamation song, Mr. Fruit. Are you treating me like I'm Nightbot? All of these songs that we're currently listening to, give me a break. We are listening to the Street Fighter 3 New Generation AST. That stands for Arranged Soundtrack. So, to my understanding, this is just instrumental mixes of Street Fighter 3 songs. Currently, we're listening to Get on a Train, which is Necro's theme. I like to imagine that was Necro talking, saying, "Come on, give me a break." I don't know if it really was, though. I mean, it's just headcanon. But anyway, really love Third Strike. Really satisfying, fun game. I genuinely enjoy playing it. When I see it in an arcade, I'll pick it up and play it for a bit. I can't get very far in story mode, especially when real quarters are on the line. But it's fun, and playing it against another human being is even more fun. So definitely the gem of stuff like the 30th Anniversary Collection, if you can get your hands on it. So, yeah, I like it a lot. 9, probably. Does that sound good? Maybe 9.5, actually. I mean, what do I even dislike about the game? Nothing. All the characters are great. They got such great personalities. They're animated with such love. They're so expressive. I guess the tiniest little nitpick, I'll give this a 9.5, honestly. Tiniest little nitpick, the soundtrack, every song on the soundtrack, for the stages at least, has... oh, and the story's really cool, too. I like the weird story with the Illuminati and Gil and all that. I don't like how the more intense versions of the songs for the stages play on the second round, and then it goes back to the less intense version for the third round, if there is a third round. That baffles my mind. That boggles my mind. Baffles my mind. Nobody says that. I don't understand why they chose to make it like that. I guess they just wanted people to hear the more intense versions of the songs more often, but it's like, surely the more hype, intense version of the song should play on round 3 alone. Maybe I'm just crazy in thinking this. And I'll give a 9 to Second Impact. I don't know. Possibly just biased because I haven't played it as much. But I kind of feel like New Generation and Second Impact didn't quite have the same... They kind of feel a little more Street Fighter Alpha than Street Fighter 3. If that makes any sense. Maybe I'm smoking off my crack pipe here. But even just in terms of like the sound fonts and shit, when it comes to like the music, I kind of think Third Strike really does come into its own as its own weird style, kind of separate from even the rest of the Street Fighter 3 series. And also Second Impact just doesn't have like Chun-Li and shit. I don't know. It's got less characters, so I think that's fair enough. All right, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. This is a falling tile gem swap type game. I didn't really care for it at all, honestly. I found it really difficult, and these kinds of games I'm just not built for. It's kind of a Puyo Puyo-esque game, which for whatever reason I've just always struggled to wrap my head around. And it's kind of got a Street Fighter coat of paint on it, and I like that the characters, you know, they've got their weird little chibi forms, and they do supers when you get a combo on your opponent. But a lot of it I found very inscrutable and kind of difficult to wrap my head around. I still don't really understand. There's this whole system where if you make a certain specific pattern with the gems, it like does a super move or something. It does something crazy. I don't think we ever got that to happen. No, actually, I think we learned that that was the garbage tiles that you send over to your opponent when you get a combo or something, wasn't it? Something like that. Just not really my type of game. Maybe it's really fun if you're into like Puyo Puyo or something, but honestly, I've never heard anybody come out swinging for this game. It's kind of just a funny curiosity, in my opinion, and the name Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo is just kind of hilarious, especially, of course, considering that this was the first in this like series. And then there's a second game that's in this series, technically, kind of, that uses the same sprites, but doesn't have 2 in the title. That's just funny to me. Also, this was the PS1 version. I think this is available on arcade machines as well, but wasn't a big fan of this one, honestly. Maybe like a 4. It was cute, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. This is Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix, aka Pocket Fighter. This is a cute chibi version of Street Fighter. I would most closely compare it to Street Fighter Alpha, but it has crossover characters as well. It's got, I think it's got some Darkstalkers characters and some other stuff, which is cute. It's kind of a fun, cutesy crossover game that's not meant to be taken too seriously. And I'm gonna make myself sound like the biggest bitch on the planet for saying this. Even the systems in this game, like the fighting game systems, I found a little too difficult to interact with. The whole, like, what do they call them? I don't even remember what they call them. There's this weird combo system where there's like branching paths. We talked about this on stream. It's really hard to even describe in words. The way that you do just normal, I guess you would, it's kind of like target combos where you just like mash buttons and combos just happen, but depending on the order that you do them in, your character does different little animations. It was simultaneously a little too complicated for me, and also on its, you know, in the end, when it comes down to game mechanics, a little too simplistic, where it's just like a lot of the combos in this game are you stand next to the enemy and pummel them 4 or 5 times with varying different cutesy animations, with very little variance on like execution or what's actually happening in terms of, you know, the actual gameplay. So, not the deepest fighting game experience, and I honestly found that a lot of frustrations that I had with other earlier fighting games, like not being able to input shit consistently, happened in this. It's funny too. Street Fighter 3, I honestly feel like is really good about taking your inputs and being a little bit lenient, at least in my opinion. I've had less trouble with this one than a lot of the early Street Fighter games, but even Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix, I was still having trouble like actually inputting shit like constantly. And frankly, the presentation, you know, I like the stages and stuff and the music, like there's lots of cute stuff, cute little references everywhere if you're a huge Capcom nerd. To enjoy, but I kind of don't like the little chibi Street Fighter characters. I kind of just think they're ugly and weird. Some characters it works better than others, you know, like Morrigan or whatever. No, I always get their names mixed up. The cat girl from Darkstalkers, whatever her name is, Felicia, and like Chun-Li and stuff, you know, those characters work a little better, but then you're looking at characters like Dan and Akuma, and it's like, ugh, they just look gross and weird as little chibi guys. So, not even super on board with the entire visual style of this game, but there's a lot to love. There's a lot of charm to it. Definitely more cool and enjoyable as a fighting game than Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, which is not a fighting game. Let's give this a number. What are we giving it? I honestly don't think I would recommend it, but it was certainly a lot better than... I'm honestly gonna maybe back this one down a little bit, give it like a 3. And then this one's maybe like a 6.5. It was like fine. But there was plenty of stuff that kind of irked me about it, I guess. And that song's a banger, by the way. Ryu and Ken's theme is what that one is. Now we're moving on to Alex's theme. Okay. Which is just, it's Jazzy NYC 99, but Latin style. Okay, Street Fighter EX3. Here's an early 3D Street Fighter game. This is not even really like a first-party Street Fighter game. It's made by Arika, who also... Didn't we see Arika recently? What did they make that we played recently? Fuck. There was some other like random game that I think maybe Bella and I were playing that was made by Arika, and I was like, holy shit, it's fucking Arika. I don't remember though. Not the biggest fan of this one. Magical Disney Tetris. Yeah, that was an Arika game. So, you know how I was complaining about how I don't really like the look of 3D fighting games as much as 2D fighting games? This one really exemplifies that in a lot of ways. The character models are just kind of ugly. I don't really like... This is just a general thing for me. Again, personally, I don't really like the way 3D fighting games look and move at all. There's something weird and slow and clunky about it, and it's like the characters are too locked down and beholden to realistic movements and proportions. Like, they can do cartoonish shit, obviously, but it's like there's so many animations that just feel slow and awkward in 3D, where you can just kind of cheat in 2D and just like skip actions. You know, you can just have characters like snap to certain positions really easily in 2D. Whereas in 3D, you kind of need to like explain it a little bit better visually, which I just think kind of leads to a worse game feel. That's just my personal opinion. I know plenty of people love 3D fighting games, and I know there's plenty of fighting game series that, you know, have always been 3D, like Tekken and Soul Calibur and Smash even. And I'm sure there's plenty to love in all of those, but it's just not my personal visual cup of tea. Mechanically, I don't know, this one I think has drive impact, basically, or like focus attack. It's kind of got a similar kind of thing to that, which is kind of fun, honestly. I remember having a decent amount of fun playing this with Lark. It's also got the weird bootleg characters. It's got the... what was Fighting Layer the Fighting Layer characters, because there was this game that was kind of like a crossover game between Street Fighter and a bunch of characters that Arika made up, and then those characters that Arika made up went on to be in their own fighting game called like Fighting Layer or something. Fighting Layer EX or some shit. It's got Skullomania, who's awesome. It's got a lot of funny characters and cool ones. It's got, what is her name? Aria, I think. One of them's named Aria. I think it's maybe supposed to be Aria. But there's some fun, quirky characters in there, and there's some stuff that's definitely a little more on the fantastical side than Street Fighter typically goes. Like, Street Fighter has, you know, mystical stuff and characters with magic powers and stuff, but the characters that they brought in for Street Fighter EX were definitely even goofier. The EX series also is a little bit different from series like the Street Fighter 3 series, because Street Fighter 3, it's like, with some minor changes here and there, and with, of course, character additions, and maybe even additional moves that got added to, like, base game, like, new generation characters. A lot of the sprites are the same, you know, the sprite work, they just kind of copy-pasted it over a lot of the time. But Street Fighter EX, I think if you look at Street Fighter EX 1, the models are, like, distinctly less detailed than they are in Street Fighter EX3. I think Street Fighter EX1 might actually be a PS1 game, if I'm correct, if I'm remembering correctly. So there is a pretty, this is one of those mini-series where there actually is a pretty distinct visual change between the different games. If that matters for you, it still looks pretty crusty and old, even the most recent version of it, but that's something to consider when thinking about if you want to play this series or not. It's kind of a forgotten Street Fighter series, frankly, and I kind of see why. There's a bunch weird about it that just doesn't make it really fit in with the rest of the games, and it doesn't really have anything super exceptional going for it. Like, it's got some funny stuff, early 3D game kind of jank to it, but I really struggle to think of anything that I really loved about it, rather than just tolerated. So I'm gonna give it a no personally, and I'd give it maybe like a 7. Let's give it a 7. Final Fight Revenge. Here's another janky early 3D fighting game. This one's a lot more funny. I honestly think I maybe liked playing this one a little bit more than Street Fighter EX3 just because it has that, like, comedic kind of vibe to it. It's so goofy that it's kind of hard to take it seriously, and sometimes with a fighting game, for a casual like me, that's what you want. So it's a Final Fight fighting game with a very small roster. It's on the Sega Saturn, and I don't think it's ever been ported to anything modern. I think you just need to emulate it if you're gonna play it, which is a bit of a shame. Okay, we already heard this one, but, like, whatever, who cares? It's very goofy. It's got lots of really silly supers. I really enjoyed that some of the super moves in this game actually make use of 3D space. Like, you get little 3D mini games where it's like, oh, the enemy runs around and you try to hit them with a car, or you try to, like, snipe them down with shurikens and shit. All that's pretty fun and cool. It's got, I don't know, it's got the move where Poison undresses. I don't think she actually undresses. You see, like, snapshots of her naked, though, I think. There's all sorts of goofy shit in this game. It's pretty difficult to take seriously as a fighting game, but it's like, if you're a huge Final Fight fan for some godforsaken reason, it's honestly a pretty fun time, just goofing around in it. And it's kind of fun to see Proto Hugo. I think this game came out before Street Fighter 3 included Hugo. So this is like a version of, it's like an adaptation of Hugo Andore from the original Final Fight that kind of deviates from how he normally is in the modern Street Fighter games by the standard that Street Fighter 3 set. So that's kind of interesting. Not much else to say about it. I would say personally like a 7.5 maybe, and I don't know if I would recommend it, but it is a fun little curiosity. Why did I give Nightmare of Bill Stein a fucking recommendation? Why did I do that? Like, it's fun, but I don't know if I would recommend it. I was also, you know, speaking of, this is going back to a previous review from a previous stream. Sorry if this is poor form. But I was thinking about Nightmare of Bilstein, and especially in regards to being a early 3D game. This game is very clone heavy. Half the roster are clones, because this was like, oh, you know, we're making fighting games 3D. How can we use this technology to do cool new things? Oh, well, we can just make a bunch of like clones or semi-clones where we just rig up different models to the same skeletal animations. And that's kind of clever and kind of fun and kind of cool, but it also kind of just like cheapens every character to be like, oh yeah, this is like one half of a set of two clones that are just like slightly different and have like different supers. On one hand, it's kind of a great way to add variety. On the other hand, it kind of feels lazy. So kind of in two minds about that one. I'm actually removing the recommendation from Plasma Sword. I'm not even kidding. I don't know what I was smoking. I think I was like, oh, I don't want to give too many of these a no when I was doing that. There's probably a bunch of scores I could revise on this list, but that's a rabbit hole you could just go down forever. The games from the second Fighting Collection are on here, the ones that we played, which is all of them. Anyway, let's move on. Marvel vs. Capcom 1. The often forgotten Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Now, we're going to be talking a bunch of Marvel vs. Capcom here. We've got... The series is a bit of a clusterfuck, because there were two, technically, Marvel vs. Capcom games before MVC 1. There was Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter and X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Which I guess is not on this list. I kind of thought we played X-Men vs. Street Fighter, but I guess not. We played the Japanese version of MSH vs. Street Fighter, I think just so that we could play as Norimaru, the often forgotten Norimaru, which is like a joke character, which I won't get into it. We explained it in the videos. It's a whole thing. But MVC 1, let's just start here. Honestly, a pretty great game in its own right. I can see how it would be basically invalidated by MVC 2. You know, MVC 2 just has such a ridiculous roster and probably refined systems, although I don't really know. I don't honestly really remember super well the difference between like the different extraneous systems in the different Marvel vs. Capcom games, but I know sometimes some of them had like the team up attacks. I just accidentally opened Adobe Premiere. I think MVC 1 had the like team up attacks where it had like, because it's the one that has the character select screen has the halves of faces on the menu, and then there's like special moves where you can get two characters out at once to do like a big combo attack together, and it puts the halves of their faces together in the middle of the screen. I think it was really fun going back to this one. Not fun if you suffer from photosensitivity, for sure. Not a game for anyone with epilepsy. Tons of flashing lights. Same with Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. And definitely I can see how you would probably just want to skip on to MVC 2 if you want to play, you know, a sprite-based Marvel vs. Capcom game. But I gotta hand it to him, you know, the presentation in MVC 1 is really, really great, and I love all the art, and they really cooked with this first one in the official, you know, series. So it's kind of sad that this one gets a little bit forgotten, but I kind of see why it does, but I can appreciate it for what it did. I really like all the stuff that is unique to this game is really great. So I don't think I would give it a recommend, but hey, I mean, it's fucking MVC, baby. That's like an 8. That's an 8 from me. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. This is basically just proto MVC with a little bit less stuff in it. It's got Norimaru. We played the Japanese version, which has Norimaru, who's a funny joke character. I don't know, 7.5. I'm not going to think too hard about this one. Wouldn't necessarily recommend, mostly because of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes. This is the gold standard in some ways, and also the sloppening, the beginning of the slopification of Marvel vs. Capcom. That's total misuse of the term slop, but I kind of just wanted to say that. This is an enormous crossover game. How many characters are in this game? Like 50? It's actually ridiculous how many characters are in this game. They kind of took this slapdash approach to making a crossover game where they were just like, yeah, just like bring in everyone. I don't care if, you know, there's some Darkstalkers characters that are just in like a totally different pixel art sprite style than the ones that we're currently making for this game. It's fine, just bring them all in, bring in Street Fighter Alpha sprites, it's just like a huge compilation game. It feels like fucking Mugen. Like, it feels like a fan game in a lot of ways. But it's very 56 in MVC2. MVC3 has 50. Crazy. And MVC3 slaps too. But I think the biggest criticism you could have of this game is it's a little weird. It's a bit of a weird mishmash. It feels a little unpolished at times. But it's such a huge, glorious, sort of indulgent experience that I didn't really find that to bother me too much. I think I would give a recommend on this one. It's some of the best MVC that you're gonna get, and the original characters are cool too. I like Sun Sun, I like Amingo, I like Ruby Heart? Blackheart? No. Blackheart is a Marvel character, Ruby Heart is the Capcom character. The new characters are great. It's a cool compilation game. It's got that great music, iconic soundtrack. I love the stages. Great look to this game. I mean, iconic really is the word. I want to take you for a ride. Let's just say that. Let's just say you'll be taken for a ride. 8.5. I think that's fair. It's a really, really cool game, for sure. And it's honestly one that's fun too. The team system is great. The whole tag team system kind of... There's a lot of stuff about this game. I know it had a big competitive scene for a while, but it's a really fun casual fighting game, in my opinion. Sorry. Oh, hiccup. Take a drink of water, buddy. Okay. Capcom versus SNK Millennium Fight 2000. We didn't play a huge... I've not played a huge amount of this one. I've played more CVS2. As is, you know, similar case with MVC. I'm not the biggest SNK fan, so I kind of had a similar feeling playing this one as I did with EX3, where I was like, there's some wacky characters in here, but a lot of them I'm just kind of like, what? Like, what am I looking at? Honestly, I kind of like the Street Fighter EX3 crossover characters more than a lot of the SNK characters. We've been over this, and I've joked about it and been like super hyperbolic about it in the past, but I genuinely don't really vibe with a lot of the SNK characters very much. I know they're a wide array of different characters, but it's just, I don't know, I guess I'm just a Capcom guy. I can't explain it. Perhaps it's totally irrational, but it's just the way I feel. But I'm not the biggest fan of CVS. It's kind of fun. I kind of think, it's weird because there's also SVC, where the Capcom characters get done in like an SNK-ish pixel art style, but even this one, it kind of feels like it's a little bit more over the line into SNK territory than Capcom territory, just visually and tonally, kind of. I know the controls are still, you know, you can choose the C groove and play it like it's a Street Fighter game, but not the biggest fan of this one. The stages are really cool. You gotta hand it to them on that one. The big thing that we appreciated about, again, just as with a lot of other earlier versions of fighting games, CVS1 has a lot of cool stages that have been lost to time, and particularly the intros to the stages are really cool. They have little animated intros, which is awesome. There's lots of cute little details in this, you know, custom intros for certain matchups. I love little details like that, and I'm sure I would love them even more if I liked these SNK characters more, but it's not really my vibe, personally. I don't think I would recommend this one. Maybe I would give a charitable recommendation to CVS2, but honestly, I don't really care for CVS2 as much either. I'd just rather play MVC. And it's like, I don't really even like Marvel that much, but I just think it's like a good... in a weird way, I know it's like all these SNK characters are from fighting games, but I kind of feel like the Marvel characters are a better match against the Capcom characters, just in terms of the vibe. Who knows what I'm smoking with this one, but that's just how I feel. So, personal enjoyment, I don't know, like a 7. It's not like abysmal or anything, it's just not really my type of thing. CVS 2, similar feelings. The stages are crazy. The presentation's pretty good, the music's great. I don't really remember the music from CVS 1 that much, honestly, but I remember the music from CVS 2 really standing out. You know, it's got True Love We're Making, but it's got a bunch of other bangers too. Definitely more enjoyable than CVS 1. I'd probably give this one like a 7.5. I'm really on the fence about recommending it. I'll give it a charitable recommendation. You know what? This one's for you, Bella. Bella really likes this game, so I know it's like how does that make sense? This is your own spreadsheet, but it's my spreadsheet and I get to make the rules. Okay, Capcom Fighting Evolution. This is like peak Capcom slop. This basically has all the bad qualities of MVC2 without any of the stuff that gives that game goodwill, basically. This is a very lazy, slapped-together compilation game that's meant to be like, oh, it's like we got characters representing all the different, like, a bunch of different famous Capcom games, and it's done in this really slapdash way. The stages look like dog shit. The music is not very good. It's tonally all over the place. It's got the whole Ingrid drama in it. There's a huge backstory to this game about why it exists in the form that it does. But end result is it's not a great fighting game. It's a bit of fun to mess around with for like a little bit. I kind of love that they put it on Capcom Fighting Collection too. I guess that doesn't have this distinction here, because I've streamed this twice. I played it with Lark and I played it with Bella via the Fighting Collection 2, but if you get the Fighting Collection 2, it's worth booting it up and playing it just for a second, so you can play as the funny dinosaur from Red Earth. I think the biggest thing is that there are 2 playable Red Earth bosses in this game, which is kind of fun. And, you know, there's some little things where it's like you gotta hand it to them. They put a little bit of effort in here. With like the Darkstalkers transformation characters, they actually made transformations for all the new characters that Darkstalkers characters have never interacted with before. That's cool, I guess, but it's really not. I mean, it's certainly not a game that you'll ever play for more than like a session. Like, why would you do it? So, not gonna get a recommendation. It's funny, which is why I think it's gonna get a higher score than perhaps some may think it deserves. But the humor, it's kind of a kusoge. It's like laughing at how terrible the stages look and how much, oh my god, the way in the stages they just reused a bunch of official art of the characters. It's so funny if you're like a huge Capcom nerd playing this game, because it'll be like, oh, that's like a fucking like drawing from promotional material for Street Fighter 2 of like E Honda in the background that's just been bit crushed and pixelated to, you know, death. There's all sorts of little things like that that you can point out where it's just like, this is the laziest piece of shit game ever. So in that sense, it is kind of funny to play, and that's why it gets a 6. It would get lower if it wasn't funny. Okay. Ultra Street Fighter 4. This is a fun one. I kind of think of the 3 between Street Fighter 4, 5, and 6. I kind of think I like this one the most. Mostly, again, because it kind of sticks to that older art style for Street Fighter. I kind of think around Street Fighter 5 and 6, they kind of gave up on that anime cartoony style that has defined Street Fighter for so long, up until that point in the series. I love the way it looks. I can see how the visual style would be a little off-putting to people, especially nowadays, but honestly, I think it looks great. I think it's aged great. That stuff with like the thick black outlines of the characters, especially all the stuff that happens visually when you're doing a focus attack, that stuff's really cool to me. I like how it feels. It's got good lenient controls for a scrub like me. It's got a huge roster. I mean, a lot of these more recent ones. Street Fighter 3, one of the even Third Strike, like, it has plenty of characters to have fun with, but then you look at the roster of games like Ultra Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5 in its final form, and you're like, whoa, like, that's a ton of characters, and, like, you know, the MVC games. So Street Fighter 3, you know, maybe a little lacking in number of characters, technically, but then you look at, you know, Ultra Street Fighter 4, and it's like, damn, like, there's so much to play around with here. And especially when you consider, I think, we didn't explore this on stream, but aren't there, like, different versions of the characters? There's, like, Omega versions of every character or something, where they can all get pregnant. I mean, they all have different movesets or something. And there's just a lot of variety of characters that you can choose from here, and I think they're lovingly rendered, and they're well made. I don't know, again, from a casual standpoint, I like it. I'd probably give this one an 8.5. It's fun. I kind of wish I had played this one more. It just kind of, like, we played it for a full stream, but I would be willing to go back and play this one some more just for fun. I guess it wouldn't show up in a fighting collection because it's already on Steam, but, man, maybe I should play this one again recently. Why did you give me the vision of Rufus pregnant, bro? Rufus already looks like he's pregnant with, like, triplets. Anyway. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I honestly think this might be my favorite Capcom fighting game. It's between this and Third Strike. Fantastic presentation, love the look of this game. It's got none of the laziness of MVC2. All these characters are crafted from the ground up. It's 3D models, but it's stylized in such a way that it's still got that really cool, snappy, crisp, cartoonish style that I love in Street Fighter. I know it's not a Street Fighter game technically, but it's, you know, in the same region as Street Fighter. Tons of characters to choose from, ridiculous, silly variety. I love that Phoenix Wright is in this game. I'm kind of sad that when we streamed this game, I wasn't a huge Phoenix Wright nerd, because I think I would have nerded out so hard over Phoenix Wright being in this game when we played it, if we had done it after I had played at least some Phoenix Wright games. We're through the AST, by the way. Should we move on to... I'm just looking at my MP3s here. What's something else that I could toss on? You know what? This is a random pick. Basement Collection menu music. Another kind of long song that's just nice background music. So yeah, as chat has put it so eloquently, UMVC3 fucks. It's super fun. The hits feel great. Combos feel very natural. I think MVC, you know, they kind of took this approach just throughout the whole series in general of, like, combos are a lot easier to do, and juggling and air juggling and all that. There's all this stuff about, like, you know, characters have, like, a universal, like, everybody has, like, a launch someone up in the air and do a big juggle combo move. They definitely wanted this to be more flashy and over the top. I know that top level MVC3 has kind of had all the fun optimized out of it. It's like, what is it, Zero, Virgil, and someone else. There's like an optimal team that just there's no reason not to play. And I'm sure, yeah, listen, competitive players can suck the fun out of anything, but that's a rude thing to say. But it might not be super well balanced for high level play, but as a casual fighting game, it is a blast. Really enjoyed playing this one. Presentation is fantastic. Love the variety of characters. Love the team system. Love basically everything about it. It's crazy too, because, like, I don't even care that much about Marvel or Capcom, really. I mean, I kind of care about Capcom. I kind of just arbitrarily decided to care about Capcom, like, as a channel bit. Isn't that weird? Why did I do that? I never had any background with, like, Capcom games. I just, like, decided to do it. I think it was when I looked on, like, Wikipedia, just out of curiosity, at, like, a list of all the Street Fighter games, and there was just so much interesting stuff, so many interesting details about the series, and so many cool games that I had never played before, and I was like, that's just an excuse to delve into this and just like talk about this sort of stuff. I don't know. Dante Virgil Zero, yeah. Yeah, and Dr. Doom Morrigan. I didn't know Morrigan was a top pick as well. Anyway, it also does, isn't there like goofy shit that people have done in tournament with like Phoenix, Dark Phoenix? That's a gimmicky character. Anyway, UMVC 3 as a casual fighting game enjoyer, super fucking fun. I would give this a 9.5 as well. Absolutely would recommend. What a blast. MVC Infinite. Kind of a shame about this one. You know how I was talking about how I love consistent tone and great presentation? Well, that kind of went in the toilet with MVC Infinite. It's still a fun enough game, but I kind of would lump it alongside Street Fighter V and Street Fighter VI, where it's like, I kind of just think it looks ugly, and a lot of times in these Marvel vs. Capcom games, presentation is a huge part of it, and like the look and feel of it is immensely important, and this was just such a huge step back in terms of both of those. It's certainly not a terrible game, but would I recommend it over the other available MVC games? Absolutely not. It's like, and it's so obviously tainted by the MCU, you know, the movie universe. And I'm not trying to be like a huge MCU hater or anything. It's really hard to say MCU when I've been saying MVC like 500 times. I keep trying to say MVU. But it's tainted by that sort of like ugly MCU movie style. I don't know, it's fine to hate on the MCU. Who's out here coming out swinging for the MCU at this point? It's just kind of weird. It's got some fun new character picks in it, like the devil from Ghosts and Goblins, right? I don't think that was in 3, was it? Maybe it was. Firebrand. And you got like the Monster Hunter character. Like there's some fun stuff in there for sure, but just didn't tickle my pickle in nearly the same way that the previous 2 MVC games did, so. Firebrand was in 3. Oh, well, I'm owned. Let's just say I'm owned. But there were some fun new characters in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It was just so unmemorable that I can't even remember any of them. What are we listening to next? Scooby-Doo OST. This'll get me copyright claimed. I've got this big old folder of like studio recordings of the music used in classic Scooby-Doo. Oh, let's go Phoenix Wright jams. Here's some Phoenix Wright playlist of just like the hits. Hell yeah. Hey pal, this is my crime scene. It's the cops. Okay. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Not the biggest fan. I'm sure I've heard from like fighting game nerds that it's quite a fun fighting game if you're like into them. But as a casual enjoyer, there's almost no reason to play this one, TBH, over the other ones. So give it like a 7, sure. All right, Street Fighter V. Now, I kind of like Street Fighter V, and I kind of hate Street Fighter V. I think it's a little ugly, kind of like Street Fighter VI. I just think the further they got away from the more simplistic, sort of smooth, cartoony style of the old ones, blah, 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 you've heard this before, the less I like it. And this was also the first time where they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna start doing like a bunch of like crazy redesigns of iconic characters, but we're not gonna make a bunch of new characters, no. We're gonna make some new characters, but we're also gonna make all the old characters look weird. Which I don't personally vibe with. I kind of think if you want to make new shit, make new shit. Don't put a fresh coat of paint on the old shit. I don't know. That's a very broad way of putting it, and you could accuse, you know, Street Fighter 4 of doing that in a way, but I don't really like the way the characters look in this game, just personally. Mechanics-wise, it's fun. I don't know, some of the more complicated systems like V-trigger and V-shift and V-ism, whatever you... V-ism's different. That's Street Fighter Alpha. But all the V stuff, there's literally 3 different side systems that have V in the name, because Street Fighter V, Lamau. didn't really engage with those too much as a casual enjoyer. It was pretty fun to press buttons. There's a lot of characters in the final version of it. I like what few new characters we did get in this game, but there weren't a ton that really leapt out to me, and it just kind of... This is one of those... This and Street Fighter 6, honestly, both of them, I was just kind of like... When playing them, I was just sort of like, well, what am I doing here? Like, why would I play this rather than some of the older ones that excite me more in a visual sense? So I'm sorry to say, I'm not like hating on this, but I think I would generally maybe recommend it. Super on the fence, but I'd give it like a 7.5. I know a lot of people have a lot of complaints about Street Fighter V, but honestly, a lot of those complaints were centered around how it existed in its early days. And this version that we have now is pretty great. Is there a link to the list? I think we do. I could give you one. Share. Hold on. I'm always worried it's gonna like leak my email address. Oh yeah, I think it would have. I think it would have. I'll drop it in chat. I think I've actually forgot to put this in the description of the last like 5 review streams. There's a link. I can post links even if you can't, chatters. All right, here's the last one on the list of ones I've actually streamed, although we've got more, a few more after this. Wow, look at, oh, I'm seeing all you guys join in. Anonymous Ferret, Anonymous Elephant, Anonymous Panda, Grizzly, Jackalope. There's a fucking, which one of you is a Jackalope? Just a little joke, because you don't get to choose your character when you join in. It's just assigned. Street Fighter 6, I really found it difficult to think what, like, to formulate an opinion on this one, but honestly, I kind of just lump it in with Street Fighter 5. In a weird way, it's kind of, for me personally, as a casual, slop-coated, casual cell, it's kind of just Street Fighter 5 with fewer characters and an uglier art style. I really don't like the way this game looks, even more than Street Fighter 5. It's just too gritty and realistic and gross. Every character looks like they desperately need to take a shower. I retch when I imagine what gameplay, like, imagine what this game smells like. And I don't mean that in like a haha, I don't know, you know, what Yoshi's eggs smell like, haha kind of way. Imagine fucking standing in the middle of the, like, street in Street Fighter 6 between two of these gross-ass characters and taking a big whiff. I would retch. I nearly gagged. 6 uglier. I mean, I know, apparently this is a pretty controversial opinion, but I just don't like the way it looks very much. The characters just look weird and gross. It's like, I don't need to see the individual hair follicles and skin pores and teeth of all these characters. I just don't need to see that. There's just something weird and uncanny about it, and it still has a little bit of that Street Fighter cartoonishness to it, obviously, particularly in like the victory screens and some of the super animations, but I don't know, just not the biggest fan. I also, it just feels kind of weird and slow sometimes. Like, whenever I grab somebody in Street Fighter 6, I'm always like, man, should I, like, go get coffee or something while we wait for this to happen? It's just like, and when I get grabbed in Street Fighter 6, I'm just sitting there rolling my eyes like, okay, like, when can I fucking play the game again? Because it's like, again, these realistically proportioned characters are beholden to certain rules of, like, reality in a way that 2D sprites are not. I don't know. So, what's up with the NA ratings? Those are just games where I felt like I wasn't qualified to give an opinion, so, or it's not a game. Like, this isn't a game, this is demo scene stuff. Shoot 'em 3D, this is a game that, like, didn't function properly on my computer. Pizza Tower Demos, this is a bunch of different games. I didn't feel like giving ratings to each individual one. And giving a rating to the whole concept of Pizza Tower Demos as a whole would be weird. A lot of them are just games that didn't function properly on my computer, for the most part. So, there's not very many of those, though, thankfully. So Street Fighter 6, it is just like Street Fighter 5. It's a basic amount of fun, and just like MVC Infinite. It's fun, it's functional. I can see it's a polished fighting game. I'm sure it's a lot better balanced than some other fighting games earlier in the list, but I don't really care too much about like balance and like competitive viability. I really just care about like presentation and fun and pickup and playability, and frankly, it has that pickup and playability, but there's so much that I kind of vaguely dislike about this game that it really puts me down while playing it. And especially the fact that it's, you know, at time of speaking, at time of recording, it's got a pretty significantly smaller roster than something like Street Fighter 4 or 5. So I'm just kind of like, why play this? I don't know. That's just me. So I'm gonna be honest, this might seem like a crazy take to barely recommend Street Fighter 5 but not recommend Street Fighter 6, but this is if you're a casual like me. I honestly think Street Fighter 5 is more worth your money right now. It's still a cool game. It's still a cool game. Honestly, I'm even gonna do this. This might piss people off even more. Same number, different recommendation. Yeah, that's right. We're ending it with a plot twist. Okay, and that is the whole list of every game I've ever streamed, which is kind of crazy to think about. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Street Fighter 6 exactly as fun as Final Fight Revenge. It's personal level of enjoyment for any reason, okay? Even if that's just entertainment by a game being silly and goofy. Yeah, and Street Fighter 5 is like a third of the price. That's true too. Probably takes up significantly less disk space as well. Street Fighter 6 updated the other day, and it was like downloading literally like 50 gigabytes. I was like, are you kidding me? Deltarune patch notes just dropped. Hold on, drop everything. Only bug fixes. Makes sense. It makes sense. They'll patch the daggers later. They'll patch the daggers later. That's funny. I wonder, did they fixed a common crash in a room with a lot of screens? Nice. The very first one on the change list is the one that Bella and I got. That's cool. Oh, Placid Plastic Duck Simulator got an update too. Poggers. Anyway, should I know what Deltarune is? Why single out that one and not any other game that we've talked about today? I'm sorry if this is not the case, but you're giving me vibes of like when I was in like 3rd grade and I heard people talk about Justin Bieber, and I'd be like, haha, who is Justin Bieber? I don't know who that is. I'm such a hipster, even though I did know who that was. No, I don't know. Randomly lashing out at this deranged streamer. Deranged streamer yells at innocent chat member who just asked an innocent question. We're gonna move on to games that I haven't streamed, but that I would like to talk about, basically. And these are... This list could honestly be longer, this part, but I kind of just started recording this at a certain point while I was doing this review series. I think it would be a little silly to like reach too far into my past and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna review like Zelda Wind Waker in this section and stuff, especially when there's a lot of those games I do intend to stream someday. Who the hell is Steve Jobs? Yeah. Deltarune is a very popular video game that just got a new release. It is shocking if you haven't heard of it at all and have some kind of internet presence, but I suppose it's possible. Have a nice day. One shot. Okay. Speaking of Deltarune, we're gonna be covering some quirky Earthbound inspired RPGs with themes, so plug your ears if that's not your sort of thing. In fact, I am gonna put up a spoiler tag. This is just a generic spoiler tag for whatever, I mean, you can read, for whatever current game is selected. So... Hold on. Still manually selecting music, by the way. Actually, could I could make a playlist here pretty easily. No, why would it be easy? Why would it be easy? Did that maybe work? I don't know if that worked. I just selected all of them. Okay. Anywho, let's talk about One Shot. I did not care for One Shot. I'm sorry. There's gonna be some One Shot slander. There's gonna be some Undertale Yellow slander. I apologize. You may just want to tune out if you're big fans of either of these games, because I didn't really vibe with them. One Shot is a... It's not even, like, calling it an RPG feels weird, because there isn't really an RPG element. It's just kind of a isometric, top-down, walk around and talk to people and solve rudimentary puzzles type of game, with sort of a meta angle to it. I didn't really vibe with it. I didn't really care for the writing. It's easy for... I think it would be very easy for you to say, for anyone to say, like, oh, this game feels like an Undertale ripoff, because there's a lot of stuff that kind of does feel very similar to Undertale, in terms of just the setting and tone, and characters. But I think the real snipe on this game is... we have off at home. There were so many things, not stylistically, but sort of thematically, that were so similar. I was like, man, I'm sure this stuff would like hit so hard and go so sloppy if I hadn't played off before. But unfortunately, I have played off before, and none of this stuff really hits very hard. It's got a bunch of stuff regarding like the relationship between the player character and the player themselves, and like they talk directly to you, and you're supposed to be super like creeped out by the fact that the character talks to you directly, you know. And it just didn't hit very hard. Maybe it's just a victim of, it's kind of like E.T. syndrome, where it's like you see a bunch of stuff that's very similar to E.T. that was even inspired by E.T. And then you go back and watch E.T. and you're like, this is the most boringest movie of all time. Like, I feel like I've seen this movie 1,000 times. Is the Off remake out yet? No. But it's coming, and I'll play it. I probably won't stream it. I'll probably just play it with Bella, and I'll give a little review of it on these streams. But One Shot, and it's like, I don't want to give any crap to anybody who did vibe with this game. Again, I kind of think, I don't know, Off is just the version of this game that is more my vibe. But there was just a lot I didn't care for in this game. It's got this whole meta aspect where you go into the game files and like mess around with stuff, and like there's like check the documents folder / One Shot you know, app data, and find a secret message from like the character or whatever. But it's like the game really heavily spells out how to do all that stuff, which kind of removed a lot of the magic of it for me. It's like, you know, if it didn't spell that stuff out for you, you would have to, you know about it basically extraneously from someone telling you. There's almost no chance that you would find it on your own. But it was just the fact that it was like, go into the game files to go see the spooky message I put in the game files. Wow, aren't you spooked out? And I was kind of like, not really. I don't know. It's not supposed to be necessarily spooky, but like, you know, woo, you know, it's got kind of that like, whoa, meta vibe. And there were some fun things, I think, to give this game more credit. There were some fun meta puzzles. Where are we at? Sure. In the playlist. There were some fun meta puzzles. I kind of felt like even some of the coolest meta puzzles that were in this game, where it was like, oh, there's a JPEG with transparency, or like a PNG in the game files that you need to take out and like view the game through the transparent image, and it kind of looks like Hanging Chad in Balatro, where it's like, oh, it selects certain parts of the screen, and that's how you know where to go in the game or something. There was that whole part that had a bunch of those, and that part went on for way too long, and I was like, man, there was like one cool idea in here, and then they were like, well, we gotta milk this for all it's worth. I don't know. And there was some cool stuff. The biggest spoiler that I could possibly give, plug your ears for like 10 seconds or so, if you really don't want to hear this in particular, but when the main character at the end of the game just walks off the window away into another world, I was like, oh, you know, that's cute, that's cool, I can appreciate that was a neat idea. But the charming things about this game weren't really enough to win me over, and a lot of the times when I was like listening to characters talk in this game, I was like, man, what bearing does any of this have on anything? Like, this just isn't really interesting to listen to. It was just kind of dull for me. I don't know, and a lot of the puzzles were so spelled out for you and so simplistic that I was like, there's almost no gameplay in this. Which I don't necessarily need gameplay, but I need something to latch onto. And there was very little that I found enjoyable about this. So personally, would not recommend. I can see how you could get more out of this game than I did, but it just wasn't for me. Maybe I just played it at the wrong time in my life, a la, or i.e. after playing off. So, yeah, I don't know. It's worth mentioning that there's a console version of this game that does all the meta stuff using a fake operating system, which is really cool. I appreciate that they went to the effort to do that. There's like a Switch version of the game that has just a fake OS that you have to go into the game files for. I have to wonder if I actually would have liked it more if I had played that version. And there was, oh man, it kept cracking me up. The game reads the name of your PC, I think, or something. It like takes your name from somewhere in your like personal files and says it to you. And there's a part where it's like, oh, hello, Jacob. And I was like, man, I feel like this was supposed to be like a, wow, like mind-blowing, like, what, the game's talking to me? But it just made me like, it was just funny. It was just funny to me, especially because, and I've talked about this before, and this is so stupid and personal, I don't even think about myself as Jacob anymore. I think about myself as Grapefruit. That's like, that speaks so much to how I view myself and like my sense of identity, but it's true. I'm not Jacob anymore. I'm Grapefruit. It's like how Bruce Wayne doesn't think of himself as Bruce Wayne. He thinks of himself as Batman. But it's just genuine. It's just genuinely how I think. So when it was like, hello, Jacob, I was just like, just made me giggle. So there's some cool stuff, but not nearly enough to outweigh what I didn't really like about it. A lot of it just dragged on for me, personally. There was some cute moments. Not the biggest fan, though. So it's funny. Someone in the chat said, and you're saying this, not me, okay? I cannot endorse or condemn this opinion. I would never say such a thing, but I might agree with you, chatter. I might be crazy, but a lot of people's enjoyment of One Shot might be parasocial. I've seen so many Nico profile pictures. That fuck-ass character is the most marketable profile picture core character, you know, only to be outdone by Ralsei in Deltarune. So, like, quintessential profile picture core. I guess just essential. Yeah, parasocial might not be the perfect word to use there, but, like, I do have to wonder how many people are huge fans of One Shot just because they're like, Nico, I love you, Nico, I love you, Nico, I love you, you know? Wasn't really, and you guys know that I'm not really, like, I'm not a guy who's won over by, like, the kawaii. I'm not, like, a big, like, cutesy guy. Like, I can dig cutesy stuff. I'm not made of stone. I'm not, like, you know, my masculinity isn't so fragile that I'm not able to enjoy something cute. But I was kind of, like, I don't know. You know the fucking stupid gif of, like, Homelander, like, wrinkling his nose while looking at someone? That's kind of how I was looking at Nico the whole game. So, I don't know. I'm glad, Chatter, you brought that up. Yeah, I don't know. He's definitely uwu cute. Anyway. Let's get another song going. Oh, we're getting to all the pressing pursuit ones. This is gonna make it sound really epic when I say that Undertale Yellow was mid. Okay, One Shot, I don't know. For me, it was like a 5, personally. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. It's just personal enjoyment. Undertale Yellow. This is an Undertale fan game. I didn't really care for it too much. There was a lot of cute stuff, like Undertale fan game type stuff. I think the best part about this game was definitely the battles. There were a bunch of cool fights, you know. When I was done playing Undertale for the first time, I was kind of like, man, I wish there were more just like fights that you could do. And, you know, of course, Deltarune gave us that. There's tons of fan games. There's even Flash games that, you know, mimic the Undertale battle system really accurately. But I'm gonna be honest, the people, in my humble opinion, I kind of think, and I'm sure fan game creators are so sick to death of hearing this because it's so, like, easier said than done, but I kind of think they probably should have just made their own game instead of making it an Undertale thing. I just felt like, yeah, they did. It was like, you know, there's not a lot of characters brought over from Undertale, so it's not like they had to write all of them like super accurately, but there were a couple crossover characters. Flowey is a huge presence in Undertale Yellow, and I constantly was like, man, Flowey is not like a multiple game character. I feel like Flowey works for precisely one game, and that game is called Undertale. And trying to keep this character around in like sort of, you know, a prequel setting is just kind of weird. It's like, it's not a character that necessarily should be around for this long. I didn't feel like the writing was exactly, you know, in alignment with the Toby Fox standard of quality. It's like a lot of what's enjoyable about Undertale is the voice of the creator behind it. And even though obviously they were trying to mimic that voice very closely, I don't think they did it anywhere near perfectly. And hold on, get the different. This is just a slightly different version of the same song. There were so many times where I was just feeling that kind of like storytelling version of like the Uncanny Valley, where I was like, this just doesn't feel like Toby Fox writing. And I would come to something Undertale related or Deltarune related to get that Toby Fox writing and those characters and stuff, and I just don't understand the value in doing it if you're not that guy. Like, just make your own thing. The people who made this clearly have their own strengths, you know, and it just seems like a waste of talent in a way to be like, oh, we're just gonna try to like make something that's kind of aping this other style instead of making something entirely your own. I don't know. So yeah, it was just kind of rough. There were some parts of it that were just kind of dull. I liked what little character stuff there was, but there was also some stuff in this game that felt really like self-indulgent. I felt like the whole part where you're hanging out with like the cowboy gang went on for way too long. It felt very like, oh, like everyone wants to hang out with my cool OCs for like 5 hours, right? And it's like, 5 hours is an exaggeration, but it's quite a short game. I think overall just getting like the normal ending took maybe like 5 hours total. But there were some parts that felt really indulgent and kind of annoying, to the point where it was like, I don't think I like your OCs as much as you like your OCs. I'm sorry. It sounds very cruel because it probably is, but it's just how I felt. Again, there was some cool battles, cool sprite art. There was some good music in there too, but it was just like, this just ain't Undertale, and I don't know why. It seems like a fool's errand to try to make an Undertale fan game, honestly. But that's just in my opinion. I know a lot of people really loved this one, so who am I to judge, besides in my own personal opinion? I don't think I would give it a recommendation. I'd give it like a 5.5. Just wasn't for me. Just wasn't for me. I also really didn't care for, going back to this for just a second, the fact that Flowey is the like final boss again, and they basically just tried to do like another version of Photoshop Flowey. I was like, why? Why do this? Why are you trying to out Undertale? Why would you do that? Whatever. Okay. Moving on. Mother 3. This is a phenomenal game. I loved Mother 3. I talked about Earthbound a little bit earlier in this list, even though I didn't stream it technically. Well, no, Bella streamed it for 1/2 a second. But I love Earthbound. I haven't played the original Mother. I probably will at some point. I might even play it on original hardware. I figured out how to get that to work, which is pretty cool. The translation on original hardware. Mother 3, fantastic game. I kind of think it does this great thing where it uses Mother 2 as like a springboard, you know? It's a jumping off point, but it's not just like kind of a soft reboot or a remake or something, you know? To my understanding, I know Mother 1 and 2 are very different in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of like Earthbound is like a strange reboot, a reboot or a remake of the original Mother, just with like better tech behind it and more complexity. I know they're very different games. They literally have different characters and plots and stuff, but a lot of the essentials are very similar, the overall structure of it, whereas Mother 3 is kind of totally different, and even has like largely a disconnected story. There's some carryover elements, and really I could gush about Mother 3 for ages. I might even just like stream this game someday just for fun, just because it's so good. It's got that classic charming writing, really lovable characters, amazing music, really fun graphical style. I think it's a GBA game, so there are some things that might be off-putting to people about the way that it looks, but I think overall it's a GBA game that's held up really well. So yeah, it's got all the strengths of Earthbound, and honestly, I think, you know, the story kind of does different things, but in a way I do think Mother 3's story was even a little bit more emotionally resonant for me than Earthbound, which is funny because Earthbound was also very emotionally resonant and had I think, a really strong core to its story. But Mother 3 just takes it even further, and I won't go into all the details, but there's just so many great moments in this game. I remember when going into this game, I was kind of like, the way I've heard people talk about it, I kind of wonder if people just talk up this game because it's got like a few emotionally devastating moments that are just super memorable in people's heads. And there definitely are, but it's got so much more than that. There's so much more than that to it in terms of just story and themes. I think the theming of this game is like peak, absolute peak, as they say, as the kids say. So much of it is just about like human corruption and how, in a weird way, it's like human societies are like destined to collapse upon themselves because of greed, because of, you know, you could say on a smaller level of things like capitalism, or you could just say on a larger level, personal greed and exploitation of others. You know, there's a ton of things all relating kind of around those central themes, and it's just really well realized. There were so many parts that made me laugh. There were so many parts that made me get a little choked up, you know, made me feel real strong emotions, which not a lot of games necessarily do that. I'm a gamer, you know, there's a lot of great games out there that don't, you know, make me wistful, but I think some of the best games are the ones that really touch you deep inside, you know, that kind of rattle you to your core. That's a lot of times the strongest power of a video game, is when it does that. Somebody said Ace Attorney music is perfect for these streams. Yeah, I mean, Ace Attorney, talk about that original trilogy, talking about emotional resonance and strong theming. That shit's got it in. It's got that in spades. So really fantastic game. I think if I had to find nitpicks, I couldn't get the hang of doing the timed button presses on the beat of the music, and Bella had no problem with this, so maybe it was just a me issue, but it's like, I can tap to time, I'm a former musician, I know how to like sit there and tap 16th notes, but I just, for whatever reason, there's this whole system in the RPG battles where it's like when you do a standard attack, you can tap on time to the music and it'll do additional hits. And it's not necessarily, you know, core to being able to beat the game or anything. It's just a way to like sprinkle in a bit of additional damage. And some of the battle themes have like harder rhythms. There's the one where you have to go like dun, 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 dun. But some of them, a lot of them, it's just quarter notes, and I found myself consistently struggling to do that, and I don't know what I was doing wrong. Sometimes with rhythm games, I just get like this, where there'll be a rhythm game where I'm like, I'm doing it to the beat, and it's just not happening. Why? And then Bella picks it up, and she's like, no, I got no problem with this, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't fucking know. So, anyway, that was just one thing that was slightly frustrating to me throughout the game. I also felt that, you know, it's got a pretty normal... I'm looking for other music to listen to because we're out of Phoenix Wright jams. It's got a pretty typical sort of turn-based RPG combat system that by the end of the game I kind of got bored with. I was like, okay, every fight... I've talked about this in the past when talking about like Brutal Orchestra. This was the game that like inspired me to play Brutal Orchestra, because in this game I was just like, man, every battle is just kind of the same thing. You sniff with Boney at the beginning of the fight, and then you cast this buff and you do this, blah blah blah, cast this debuff on the enemy, and then you just whack them over and over again, basically. And it's like, I didn't feel like I was thinking a whole lot during the fights in this game, or at least they didn't require me to... It didn't feel like there was much room for strategy, let alone requirement to use strategy. So that's a little personal nitpick of mine, is that the combat wasn't the strongest. It was serviceable. It wasn't like offensively bad or like super boring or anything. Like, it was fine. But I would have appreciated, in a lot of times, turn-based RPGs, I know they get a lot of hate, but a lot of us really need something to spice up those kinds of systems to really enjoy them. I don't know. Let me look here. Twilight Princess OST? Kind of a random pick. Oh god, it's like the entire Twilight Princess OST, though, with all the random crap in there. Here's another one where I have a folder of hits. Yoshi's Island. Fuck it. Let's not do Story Music Box. Sure, hey, this is a fun song. This is a song you never get to listen to when you're actually playing Yoshi's Island, because who sits on the title screen for long enough for it to start playing the music? Okay. Mother 3, it's a phenomenal game. Please play it. Please, please play it. It genuinely, this is one of those ones that just stuck in my mind for so long after playing it. Yes! I'm so enthusiastic about it that it's capitalized. It's seriously like I give it a 9.5. Really, really great game. Really stands out in my memory. Okay, Astrobot. I suppose this is spoiler alert for Astrobot. Doesn't really matter. I guess I'll talk about some spoilery stuff, actually. But Astrobot, really, really fun game. I'll probably stream this at some point as well, because I didn't even play all the levels, and there's new bonus content to play as well. Just a really fun platformer. I've heard people accuse this game of being corporate slop, and I totally understand why. Oh, thank you, Hot Cock Miami. He's the only person I read gift subs from, because their name is funny. Thank you. Astrobot, very fun platformer, very polished. This is the only PS5 game, besides the Demon's Souls remake. I don't know, it was just really fun and colorful. I see why people call it corporate slop, because it is essentially just a big advertisement for Sony, PlayStation, and a bunch of like Sony products. But if it helps you feel any better, most of the stuff that this game is advertising for, or shilling in a sense, is not commercially available. So hope that softens the blow a little bit. I would also say that this game is very Mario-esque, even just looking at like the coins and the way Astrobot runs and some of the abilities. There's an ability in this game that's just straight up Cloud Mario from Super Mario Galaxy 2, for instance. There's certainly a lot of stuff that you could see as derivative, but honestly, it's like if you're gonna copy something, copy Mario. Like, that series has got, it's got a lot of stuff really highly developed at this point. It's a polished concept, and you know, if you're gonna rip anything off, rip off 3D Mario games. Not a lot of, I feel like there's not a lot of games that just blatantly rip off Mario in the same kind of way. I say rip off, but I like the game, so who cares? It was also fun genuinely going through and like there's all these little guys that you rescue that are themed around different characters from a bunch of different, you know, previous like PlayStation games, and there's a bunch of whack ones. I won't get into all the characters, of course, because that would take, you know, a ridiculous amount of time, but there were some that surprised me, where it was like, damn, you know, like fucking Vibri is in this game. They put Vibribbon, they're really referencing Vibribbon. It's pretty based. There were a lot of based references, let's put it that way. I think one of the biggest disappointments for me for this game was the levels at the end of each world that are totally themed around a specific game. If they, you know, there was one themed around Ape Escape, there was one themed around Pokoroko, whatever it's called, which those were really fun. I haven't played the original games for either of those, but I was like, whoa, these fit really well. They're a really cool, unique thing to put in here. And you know, you can change up the gameplay quite a bit with those. But then the other three were God of War, Uncharted, that had me rolling my eyes, and then the worst, oh my god, the sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach when I realized that we had one more big themed level to do in the game, and we hadn't seen anything in the game pertaining to the Horizon series. I was like, it's gonna be Horizon, isn't it? No! It was just like, could you choose a more ID gaff franchise to base a level around? Like the big final, like the shill level is Horizon themed. I was like, bro. But you know what? Even those, it's like the mechanics that they used in those. It's like, oh, you throw the axe in God of War and you shoot the gun with his Nathan Drake, whatever. Like, I can get over it. But those were just kind of like, those kind of had me rolling my eyes, because I was like, of all the series to fit into this like cartoony children's game, you're gonna put like Uncharted and shit. It's like, what? Okay. But it's a very, very fun game, very enjoyable, great music, great presentation. There's a lot of fun stuff in this game to do with, like, physics. It really felt like, wow, this game has an actual reason to be a next-gen game. That's, like, such a rare feeling these days of, like, wow, this should be on a really super new modern console. There was a bunch of stuff where it's like, oh, you know, as a reward for completing this level, here's this celebration scene where we have like 50 characters like dancing around the room, and like 1,000 physics objects just fall from the ceiling, and you can hit them around, and it all just happens perfectly smoothly without lagging the game. I was like, wow, this is cool, you know? So that stuff really made the game stand out to me personally. And just all the cool references were just fun. It was kind of a fun, like, ooh, who are we gonna find next, you know? Very enjoyable experience. I would recommend, definitely if you have a PS5, like, what are you doing not playing this? Sorry, I gotta blow my nose. Okay, I'm back. So, fun game, Astrobot. I give it like a 9. I typed in the wrong window. I know, don't think too hard about these scores. Level of enjoyment, people, level of enjoyment. Okay, Lisa the Painful. Another really great game. This one, honestly, a lot of what I said about Mother 3, about how it was resonant, it had great themes, it really stuck with me emotionally as a story. Lisa the Painful, very much the same way. This game is pretty dour and pretty like dark, and has a lot of fucked up stuff in it, to put it bluntly. So I would say if you're sensitive to issues like sexual abuse and I don't know, just intense cruelty. Maybe this game's not exactly your cup of tea, maybe skip it, I don't know. It certainly doesn't wallow in these awful concepts. It's just like, it has them in the story. It's a mature story, even though this game is also very joking and very silly in a lot of other places. It's definitely got kind of, it's like the most fucked up possible version of like kind of an, not Undertale, like a Earthbound kind of sense of humor, you know? Lots of funny jokes. Again, some of them are dark. There's a joke early on in the game where it's like, oh, here's a bunch of children and one of them's playing with fire. Oh, go get that bucket to put out the fire. Oh, that was my gasoline bucket. All the kids are on fire. Oh no. And it's like, man, that's like a pretty dark joke of like burning a bunch of children to death. But the way it's presented, it doesn't feel awful. You know, sometimes there'll be a game or a movie or a show or something where it just wallows in misery and you just feel like gunk after playing it, and this is not that type of thing, but it does have those very you know, dark concepts in it. I think it's handled pretty tactfully and pretty well, but it does get fucked up. It's like the story gets pretty intense by the end, but it is a very cool game. I would say, kind of, again, similar to Mother 3, my biggest dislike of this game would be it's got a pretty generic turn-based combat system. I do like what they did with party members in this game. There's like 30 different party members. Get this out of here. There's like a ton of different party members that you can encounter, and your team, it's like anybody's team build while going through this game is going to be totally different to anybody else's. It's probably no two builds are alike. Just in terms of, there's so many weird things that can happen to the party members too. That was something that really stood out to me as really incredible about this game, is like, it really gets across, the setting of this game is like a brutal post-apocalyptic wasteland, and it's basically, the concept is all women on Earth have disappeared, so humanity can no longer propagate, you know, so all we've got left is a bunch of like dumbass burly guys running around this wasteland, just like kicking each other in the groin and shit, and just doing dumb things while they wait for themselves to die and wait for humanity to die out. And the plot is that the main character, Brad, finds a baby girl and takes care of her, and she grows into a child, and then she gets kidnapped. And it's like, you can put together in your head why this game would have some fucked up stuff in it, because the implication is that all these random crazed men, you know, are thinking about repopulating the Earth with this innocent child who has done nothing wrong. So that's kind of where it gets fucked up, you know. You can see how there would be some very heady themes in this game when it comes to that, and just like dark concepts. Yeah, nice music for this. So it's pretty intense, but I kind of like how the world, the brutality of this world is so effectively communicated through the gameplay, because there's all sorts of stuff where like you get a party member and that party member will like be with you, and then some story event will happen where it's like, oh yeah, we have to play Russian roulette to get past this part, and there's just a 50-50 chance that one of your party members just like fucking dies. They shot themselves in the head and they're dead now, and you can't get them back. That's so brutal and fucked up, and it's like, the game is balanced enough that it's not going to become like, I think it would be pretty hard to soft lock yourself in this game, but maybe you could do it. I kind of feel like this is one of those games, like some of the early Pokemon games, where you could theoretically make like a ruined save file, but I think for the most part, it's like, there's some brutal parts for sure, and the fact that you like lose party members like that is so crazy, and there's a bunch of other things that just effectively communicate the like hostility of the world, but it's not CBT. You're gonna be able to complete it, at least. Some other things that I really enjoyed, the fact that if you want to have a full team heal by a campfire, you have to leave yourself vulnerable, and all manner of things can happen to you while you're sleeping. So, you know, sometimes a party member will get kidnapped, and then it's like, oh, there's a ransom note, and it's like, oh, come to this place if you want to see this party member again, and bring an unbelievable amount of in-game currency, which is mags, by the way. Porno magazines are the currency in this post-apocalypse. Where it's like, bring like 500 mags, which is like a ridiculous amount, and come like get your party member back. And it's like you can choose to either just not go back for them or pay this ludicrous price to get them back, or you can try to fight the person who took them hostage, who is holding a gun to their head. And big spoiler alert for this, if you try to do that, they'll be like, you don't really get how this works, do you? And they shoot your guy in the head and then fight you. And so it's like, oh, well, you lost the guy, and now you also lost resources that are going to go into doing this fight. So I just love that effectively communicated sort of ludonarrative feel of the brutal, hostile world. That shit is just so cool. Another thing that I really love about this game is... Hold on, I feel a sneeze coming. It's like edging me. I'll just blow. I really enjoy the enemy variety in this game. This is something you can kind of get away with in a sprite-based RPG like this. There's so many unique fights. It's kind of the anti-Elden Ring in a way, where it's like, if you enjoy seeing a bunch of different, you know, random encounters that are all unique from one another, that all seem to have their own little story, this is a great game for that. There genuinely must be hundreds, if not, I don't want to say 1,000, but like tons and tons of unique encounters, like almost no repeat encounters. There's like a tiny amount of areas in the game where you can get repeat encounters, where it's like, oh, here's like a shadow man or something. But for the most part, all the people that you're going to be fighting are unique guys, and it's like that also communicates that same sense of brutality, that it's like you didn't just fight like a generic enemy, you just fought like a guy who has his own story and his own hopes and dreams and his own goals that he wanted to achieve, and they're just dead now. And that's crazy. And there's so many fun little encounters where it's just like, oh, you walk through a door and there's a guy waiting on the other side with a baseball bat over his head, and he just bashes your head and starts a fight. Like, there's so many fun little bits like that. So great game. I kind of felt like the combat was pretty generic. There's this whole system where you can do like little almost fighting game inputs to do like combo attacks, but honestly that just was like rote memorization. It didn't really add much to the game for me. Like, there was some cool stuff about the combat, but there was nothing that really like enthralled me. I'm not a huge RPG guy, so maybe I was just, you know, mechanically illiterate there. But there are some games, I mean, like Hylics 2, there's an RPG where I was like, man, I really, really like this combat, or Omori, even. But Lisa the Painful, the combat didn't really do a ton for me, but the variety of the encounters really spiced it up and made up for that, in my opinion. And the story is just so cool. The tone is great. The soundtrack is great. Not a lot of the soundtrack is like super listenable necessarily, but it works really well in the game, if that makes any sense. So, really cool game. Pretty fucked up. Not so fucked up that it's like, you know, just misery porn, basically. But definitely some dark themes, something to consider before going into it. But I would give it like a 9.5 as well, honestly, and a recommendation. I mean, yeah, I love that soundtrack. If you go on the Grapefruits Jams playlist, there's a ton of stuff from that soundtrack on there. But it's just, a lot of it's kind of like brutal and mechanical sounding, you know, where it's not like you're just gonna like pop that. At least for me personally, I'm not just gonna pop that on my headphones while I'm doing dishes. Maybe some of the songs. But great game. Super, like, I love just like the forlorn, hopeless vibe. It's just great. Now, Lisa the Joyful, this is basically Lisa the Painful DLC, where you play, isn't it? You play as the little girl, who has grown up a little bit in this horrible world and become jaded. This is also great music to play this, to talk about this alongside. But it's kind of a shorter experience than Lisa the Painful. It's like maybe 3 or 4 hours. And it's kind of just like a little side story. It doesn't even, it kind of expands on some stuff that was in the main game, but not so much that it's like lore dumping obnoxiously. It just kind of like, okay, we're gonna provide a little bit more context for what happened in the main game and a little bit more, like, you know, just side story stuff, which I thought was quite compelling and fun. It was a good addendum to the main game. I'm sure it was quite a treat if you're like a huge fan of Lisa the Painful right when it came out and then you had to wait for this one to come out, but I played it right after the Painful and it kind of just felt like part of the same game, personally. I really liked the sort of way you get to review the protagonist of Lisa the Painful through different eyes in this game. That was an interesting part of it for me because Brad Armstrong's transformation throughout Lisa the Painful and the development that you get and the context that you get for his character in Lisa the Painful is so compelling and so whack. Like, so you learn so much about him, and I think he's a really great character, even though he kind of, you know, becomes a monster by the end of Lisa the Painful. A little bit spoiler alert, but you could also, you know, argue that he retained a lot more of his humanity than a lot of his contemporaries in the Wasteland as well. So, really fun character interplay. Again, it's just it's just more of the same. Honestly, Lisa the Joyful, it's just more of the same, with some cool lore stuff. So, sure, it's not nearly as much of like a complete experience. Again, it's basically Lisa the Painful DLC. But would recommend, definitely, if you play Lisa the Painful, you got no reason not to play Lisa the Joyful. And I can't speak to the quality of the original Lisa, by the way. I haven't played it. I want to play it at some point, but I just haven't got around to it. I've heard that one doesn't have combat. It's just sort of like a Yume Nikki kind of game. So can't really speak to the significance of that one, but honestly, one thing is, you may want to look up a little plot synopsis of the original Lisa so that some stuff in Lisa the Painful will make sense to you. Because there were some things in Lisa the Painful that I did not understand until I learned later about what happens in the original Lisa. Because there is stuff like that carries over from that original one. So, something to consider. Anyway, sorry, one more blow. We're so close, guys. Okay, moving on. Lisa the Painful, Lisa the Joyful, really great. Really dark, but really also cool and funny in their own ways, you know? They've got a dark yet lighthearted sensibility to them that really works. It's really fun. Finely tuned, well-balanced, good shit. Okay, Tunic. Tunic slaps. This is a top-down isometric 3D Zelda-esque game, but it's definitely its own thing. It definitely doesn't just feel like a Zelda fan game. This is a really, really incredible, a lot of people compare this to... Hold on, can we get some new music? A lot of people compare it to The Outer Wilds. It's a Metroidvania, as they say, which is a sort of, kind of like Animal Well, games where you unlock progression not necessarily exclusively through items, but also through knowledge and learning how the world of the game works in this really cool and interesting way. What should we play here? What about Tunic OST? Man, I wish YouTube worked. Like, it just, like, doesn't work at all right now, which is crazy. Oh, actually, it's back up for me. Hold on. Get Grapefruit's Jams. Let's just listen to some Tunic music. Fuck it. Oh, wait, you guys are seeing this. That's fine. Here we are. Oh god, ads. No. Wait, why am I getting an ad on not incognito mode? What the fuck? Why did that happen? I didn't do anything with my extensions. Okay, well, whatever. There are ad block shenanigans occurring, apparently. Oh, I see. It's shenanigans. Alright. Well, anyway, back to this. Tunic, really incredible game. You're hearing the amazing music right now. It's got a soundtrack filled with beautiful, atmospheric, haunting bangers. It's got a really beautiful art style. It's got that, like, what do they call it? Like, tilt-shift photography kind of perspective, where everything looks like a tiny little diorama, and, like, perspective size change, like, doesn't exist. It's kind of a trippy art style. There's some times in this game where the camera angle will change slightly, and it's kind of like, whoa, like, kind of like mind-blowing the way the slight shift in perspective makes everything look so different, and, you know, opens your eyes to even, like, new paths and stuff. Really, really, really compelling exploration game, where you're just constantly learning more interesting things about how to progress. Yes, there is sort of standard Metroidvania kind of stuff where it's like, you know, you get this item that lets you interact with a certain thing, a certain type of door or whatever. But there's also a ton of stuff where simply knowing is half the battle, to the point where replaying this game is a totally different experience than playing it for the first time. It's absolutely one of those games that I think a lot of people would say, you know, I'd love to have my memory erased in order to experience this game again for the first time. And I totally understand why people would say that. It's really, really cool. Everything about it is just really well designed. The visuals are so clean and so beautiful. The music is so great. The combat is fun. It gets pretty brutal sometimes, but honestly, it never got so brutal that I was like, what the hell am I doing here? The closest it got was like the final boss, but spoiler alert, the best ending you get from not fighting the final boss and instead solving a ridiculously tricky puzzle, which was very satisfying. And there's even some like bonus puzzle stuff that we didn't do that leads to like decoding the language in the game. There's this whole amazing system in this game surrounding the manual. You get the manual for the game while you're playing it. And hold on, let me just make sure that this is gonna autoplay. Yeah, it is. Nice. There's this whole system surrounding the manual. You get pages of the manual for the game that you're currently playing, but so much of the manual is written in a language that you cannot understand. It's just like a made-up fantasy language. And with tiny little snippets of English here and there to give you just enough information to learn the essentials. But there's so much stuff that you have to deduce and puzzle out and figure out for yourself in a way that is deeply compelling. Very, very, very cool game. Very satisfying to play through. And just such a gorgeous, beautiful world to exist in. It's really, really nice. I honestly might give this one a 10. I struggle to think of anything that I really disliked about it. It's got, and it's like, it's got, you know, it's got that mind-blowing cool stuff, but it's also like the core systems of the game are really well made and really finely tuned as well. There's a fun badge system, you know, to mess with how you interact with combat, and you also, the badges don't tell you what they do, so you have to extrapolate what they do by trying them out and by looking at tiny little snippets of hints in the manual. The combat itself is really fun and enjoyable, and by the time you get all your abilities together, there's so much different stuff that you can do to approach combat scenarios, that it's just, what a great game. What a great game. I think it's a 10. I think it's a 10, personally. Did I? No. I couldn't type for a second there. That was weird. I really don't know if I have any complaints about this game. It's a fucking masterpiece. It's amazing. Okay, moving on. Outer Wilds. This is a very similar game to Tunic in a lot of ways. It's that same Metroidvania where you're learning stuff. You don't actually get very many, if any, actual like upgrades to your character throughout the game. It's a very different style of game, you know, without considering beyond just like, oh, it's like Metroidvania progression. This is a space game where there's a simulated solar system and you fly around to a bunch of different planets and uncover mystical secrets about the world around you, and you learn about sort of the way that this universe works scientifically in a really interesting way. I really liked the Outer Wilds. I don't know if I liked it quite as much as Tunic. It's in a way kind of apples to oranges, even though they're in a lot of respects similar games. I didn't really vibe necessarily as much with the gameplay style of Outer Wilds. It's like first-person walking simulator, walk around and scan things and figure out puzzles that have to do with this whole Groundhog Day-esque time loop system. Up. And there were some things about the Groundhog Day mechanic that were kind of annoying. I think just intrinsically, any kind of game that has something like that is going to be very centered around repetition. And there were a lot of parts on some of the planets where I was like, man, I felt like I was pretty close to like getting to the end of like a little zone here, but oops, the timer ran out, or I did something wrong, or you know, part of this planet crumbled away or filled up with sand due to like the ticking time bomb sort of element of the game, and now I have to just sit here and wait for myself to die or kill myself to reset the day and have to do all that shit over again just to get another chance to figure out whatever like puzzle I'm currently working on. That stuff was frustrating. That's probably my least favorite part of the game. I kind of think anybody who plays this game is going to experience a little bit of frustration. I have not played the DLC yet. Bella and I will probably play it together at some point. Just haven't done it yet. But it's a very cool game, very beautiful, cool music, not as much of a soundtrack as something like Tunic. I don't know why I'm continuing to compare it to Tunic, but it's just what we talked about most recently, I guess. It's not got a ton of like atmospheric music that's like super like in your face, I guess, but the music is good. It's honestly kind of a similar vibe to what you're hearing right now. But I do love sort of the beauty of that solar system environment that you explore. I kind of liked controlling the spaceships. Sometimes it felt like it kind of sucked ass, but it had that like Solar Jetman kind of quality to it. It's like 3D Solar Jetman where you're navigating in space, and that just has its own set of kind of awkward control gimmicks that you just need to get used to. And once you get used to it, it feels pretty good. I would say, I'll tell you guys the, I teased this a while back. I was like, there was something that like, a specific puzzle that kind of annoyed me in Outer Wilds, because I didn't figure it out. I had to ask for help. The fucking quantum moon. So I figured out the law of like quantum photography almost like right away. It was like the first thing I found, which in retrospect is kind of shocking. But there's this whole thing in this game of quantum objects that are kind of like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. They sit still when you're looking at them, and when you look away and then look back, they're usually in a different spot. They move when you're not observing them. And, you know, this game kind of plays fast and loose with scientific concepts. Obviously, quantum objects like this, I feel like there would be a million reasons, a million caveats to that kind of thing if this sort of thing existed in real life. Maybe it does. I'm not entirely writing that off, but it's like, there's so many, you know, nitpicky questions that you could have about this sort of thing, but it's like, the way the game presents its science, it's like, okay, I understand. There's certain things that move when you look away from them. And there's a moon that's floating around the solar system that behaves the same way. And it's supposed to be, you learn very early on that taking a picture of a quantum object and looking at the picture locks it in place. Even if you're looking away from the actual object itself, if you're observing even an image of it, that still works. And the solution for the quantum, it's like when you try to land on the quantum moon, it has this like layer of clouds around it. And when you try, I was like, oh, well, with the quantum moon, if I want to land on it, I'll just keep looking at it while I'm landing on it, and that'll work. But when you try to do that, you go into the outer cloud layer, and then it just dissolves and gives way to the inky void of space. And I was like, okay, well, something weird and different is going on here, because I'm looking right fucking at it while I'm trying to land on it, and it's disappearing in front of my eyes. Like, what's happening here? So because of that, I didn't even consider the possibility of taking a picture of it and looking at the picture of it while trying to land on it, because I'm like, I'm already looking at it. But the solution was indeed, and I probably just overthought this. I'm not trying to say this is like a poorly designed puzzle. It's just kind of an anecdote. But the thought of taking a picture of it didn't even occur to me, because I was like, it disappears in front of your eyes. So that was the little anecdote that I teased a while ago that people were asking about. Because it's like, do the clouds surrounding the planet count as part of the planet or not? Because surely if you take a picture of it, you're only taking a picture of the clouds surrounding the planet. There's nowhere in that picture is the actual planet. It's just the cloud layer that apparently doesn't count as it, but it does count as it, but it doesn't count as it. Does it count as the planet or not? Kind of pissed me off, but that's just my personal experience. Scientifically, you can't justify it, yeah. Yeah. But there was a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool little details in this game. I really enjoyed, one of my favorite moments in this game was discovering the mapping satellite. If you go super far away from a lot of the other planets, there's this thing orbiting around that's like tiny, this tiny little satellite that you can find. And if you bump into it, your map stops working, and it turns out that that's the satellite that's taking an image of where all the planets are at any given time. I was like, wow, that is genius and cool. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I don't even necessarily feel like it's worth. It's like, if you've played the game, all that stuff that happens at the end where you like learn what's happening essentially is really, really cool. And I love the way it came together. And there were so many moments of like, oh, like that's so cool, you know? There were lots of really satisfying moments like that in this game. So really, really cool experience. There were some annoyances here and there, but it was also just really beautiful and cool and well thought out. There was some stuff I guess slight spoilers for the end of the game. I didn't quite understand why the people playing the musical instruments seemed to be so crucial to the story at the end. I was like, why are you all like at the emotional heart of this? Like, that stuff was very cool, but I was like, why are they so apparently significant? They're just people playing instruments, basically, in the context of the story of the game, but whatever. It got a little flowery at the end there, I think, or maybe there was something I didn't understand. One of the musical instrument players was a lot more significant to the story than the other ones, but I also just really loved the scope. What was it called? Like spectroscope or something, where you can just point it into the sky and get like audio readings from different places in the solar system. So you can just point it at a planet and you hear the musician who's on that planet. That shit is so cool to me. There's not really too much to do with that mechanic in that game, but I had a lot of fun just standing on planets and just pointing that thing at various places in the sky and hearing all the different musicians playing. It was so cool. Anyway, I would definitely recommend this game. I would recommend you play it on your own. I played it with Bella, and I love Bella very much, but I kind of wish I had played it on my own, just totally without anybody there. She was very respectful and very like, I won't spoil anything and I won't backseat unless you absolutely like want me to. But I just kind of felt like the pressure like kind of got to me and maybe reduced my enjoyment of it a tiny bit. Just having anybody there playing it with me, I was intending originally to play this game on stream, but with no contact with chat. That was going to be my concept, and it was just going to be me in a total vacuum. Because I feel like this is a great game. It's like that joy of discovery is so great in an actual, like, perfect vacuum. So that would be my recommendation. But I certainly still had a great time playing it with Bella. But there were some parts where I was like, man, I do wish that I was just, like, fully exploring this, like, totally on my own. Gosh, like some of that stuff with the planets and the time loop stuff really did annoy me quite a bit. I felt like, and even to the point where I kind of felt like there was stuff that they could have, like, some of it's just kind of like, oh, this is just intrinsic to, like, the time loop mechanic. But there was some stuff where I was like, you know, this is armchair game designer moment, but there were some bits where I was like, would it have killed us to just have some stuff on some of these planets permanently progress? Like, what if there was, like, a temporal door where it's like, here's a door that once you open it, it's just open, even in all the future time loops. I'm thinking, you know, with, again, how fast and loose this game plays with, like, real science, would it have killed them to have something like that where it's like you don't have to redo, like, everything every time you get to one of the planets? I think you could have squeezed some of that stuff in, but that's just me. Tons of really cool, mind-blowing stuff in this game. I didn't even really honestly scratch the surface of all the cool stuff that's in this game, but and tons of really great story moments. I really enjoyed listening to that other, a lot of it's about, like, translating the words of, like, an other race of aliens and all that stuff. It was really interesting to hear them talk. They might have talked a little too much. There might have been a little too much reading. IMO, there were parts where I was like, maybe this could have been condensed down and it could have retained the personality of these characters that we're reading the words of and the information that they're saying without being quite so wordy. That's just my opinion. Might be a bit of a meat-headed opinion, but there's some small nitpicks about this game. Otherwise, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, Her Story. This is one that we played recently, very recently. This is a difficult game to describe. It's like you're looking at a fictionalized police database that has a bunch of clips of this lady giving an interview, like an interrogation, basically, you know. And you learn about her story, Lamau, by searching for terms in this police database. And it's like each clip of her talking is on average maybe like 10 seconds long. So it's not like you're getting huge excerpts of story at a time. You're just getting tiny, tiny little snippets as you search for these words. And it's like there's a limitation of the database that means that you can only see 5 clips at a time that pertain to each keyword that you search up. So it feels like you're never quite getting the full picture, and getting the full picture requires an extreme amount of dedication and searching. It's definitely a really cool game concept. However, I kind of felt like I had a ton of issues with it. There were just a lot of things that didn't really work for me about it. So much of this game is just looking at this performance of it's full motion video. It's just movie. Basically, it's just video footage of a real woman, you know, giving being interrogated basically by the police. And some of the footage is from different days, you know, and she's sort of in a different mood on different days. And there's a bunch of stuff that you kind of like piece together. There's a bunch of little clues that you piece together to sort of learn more about her. But frankly, I think my biggest problem with this game is just that it was so structureless. It was like, at the very beginning, it was kind of like, okay, you watch a couple snippets of footage and she says a couple of keywords that are like names, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm supposed to take those names and plug them into the search engine and look at the clips relating to that name. And then in that name, she mentions like, oh, like this guy worked for this company and he knew this guy. And it's like, okay, now I'll take those words and I'll plug those into the search and I'll see what happens there. And then it's like, okay, there was a little bit of like structure to that early part. There's a little bit of like game design there where it's like, okay, it really feels like they're leaving specific breadcrumbs to get you to look in certain places and search certain words. But then after like the first few iterations of that kind of process, I feel like everybody's playthrough of this game is gonna be wildly fucking different from anyone else's playthrough. Like, there's just so much variance in how this story can be connected together. And I kind of think when Bella and I played this game, we kind of got, like, I don't want to say, like, lucky or unlucky. We learned, like, all the crucial plot stuff and all the plot twists, like, really early on. To the point where it was, like, the last 75% of the video files that we found were just like random crap that we like just kind of filled in tiny little gaps of stuff that we basically already knew. And I was kind of like, man, you know, you could probably make this game like you would either have to change up the structure of it a little bit, or you would have to be like ingenious about how you wrote it, basically. And I feel like the writing wasn't particularly genius, at least in terms of the game design. It also didn't really strike a chord with me in terms of just like writing as art. It kind of, the story in this game kind of felt like Baby's first Lynchian narrative, where it's like, oh, the lady, she's like two different people at once, and is it a doppelganger, or is it her sister, or is it multiple personalities? Whoa, like we just don't know. And oh, she's always, it was so, there was so much stuff that was very like hit you over the head, obvious, like trite symbolism, where it's like, the mirrors, look how much she talks about mirrors and doubles and stuff. And it's like, man, I've seen Mulholland Drive. Like, it's actually funny, I actually haven't seen Mulholland Drive. But it's like, I feel like I've seen this sort of shit done before, way better in other things. And it kind of felt like the story didn't really have a soul of its own. It kind of just felt like a David Lynch like fan story in a weird way. It was so Lynchy in a lot of places. And I also didn't really care for the acting. And I know this is the most like, look at me, contrarian opinion, because this lady won a ton of accolades for like, you know, best acting in a video game or whatever. But I really didn't like, and I don't even necessarily blame her. I think it's kind of just a direction and writing thing. But the writing and the acting in this game was very flowery and very Hollywood and very like actor-y, if that makes any sense. It didn't, this is more armchair game designing, but I feel like if I was making this kind of game, I would want the acting and the presentation of like her dialogue to be super clinical and realistic and like natural, which it just wasn't at all. It felt so fake, and I was like, why are you going with this setting of like a super realistic looking, like, oh, you're at the police precinct and you're getting interrogated? Why would you go with that and then have her be talking like this? It felt super at odds with the presentation of the game, the actual tone of the writing and the acting. So I really didn't vibe with that. It really kind of annoyed me how flowery and like overwritten the dialogue. It felt very written in a way that, you know, other similar, I'm not an expert on films and acting, but I'm thinking about, you know, even a director like Quentin Tarantino. He has dialogue that sounds very written, but the way the movies are typically directed and acted, the way he directs his actors, it feels very naturalistic. It feels like it's just off the cuff, characters coming up with stuff as they're saying it, you know. And that's the sort of stuff that I really personally vibe with, and especially in a setting like, in a context like this game. So I didn't really vibe with it in a lot of ways. What else do I have to say about this? Oh, the whole, it kind of in a weird way has a little bit of a one-shot-esque element to it that I thought was going to be a lot more in-depth, but was really in reality almost nothing, because you're on like a simulated OS, like operating system screen of some like retro computer, and there's a bunch of stuff on the desktop that's like basically a tutorial where it's like, oh, here's like the readme, and it's like, here's basically how to play the game, but the instructions are presented as though they're like in-universe instructions rather than talking directly to the player, which was cool. And there's like a trash folder, and there's a game in the trash, and it's like Othello, and you can play Othello, but none of it has anything to do with the actual game. It's just like a little side bullshit thing. And I was kind of expecting a little bit more to be done with that simulated operating system that just didn't end up happening. That was maybe just my own expectations fucking with me a little bit there, but that part just felt kind of underwhelming. And particularly the way this game ends is so underwhelming, and so it just fizzles out. When you get, I think, 50% of the video segments uncovered, you get basically an IM from SB, Sam Barlow, who's messaging you and says, so do you think you understand why your mother did what she did? And then you can answer yes or no, and if you answer yes, you get the credits. It's just like, so do you think you get the story? Okay, game's over then. It's like, huh? Like, what the fuck kind of ending is that? It was so anticlimactic, and it was like, especially because when we first played it, it was like, we just said yes just like because, even though we felt like, you know, we hadn't uncovered all there was to uncover. Now, the sad truth was, we actually had uncovered most of what there was to uncover, but it felt like there was going to be more to the story, so we just said yes just to see what happens, but it just ended there, and we were like, oh, okay, but then you can just go back into the game, to be fair. But I was like, oh man, bad like way to end the game, and you've got the little cringy M. Night Shyamalan like author self-insert. Come on, man. So there was a lot I really disliked about this game, but you know, I will take a game with a really, really unique premise and very flawed execution over slop any day of the week, you know? I really do appreciate it for what it tried to do, but I really do feel like it did a lot of that poorly, at least in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people really love this game. I don't want to hate on something, you know, that people love, but it's just my personal opinion. Didn't really click with me. I didn't like the story, didn't like the writing, didn't like the acting. Like, there was really not a ton that I liked about it, but I liked the format. The format was cool, and even that I felt like it could have used some tweaking, but it was at least memorable, yeah. Anyway, there was also one other thing is whenever like a particularly significant story segment would be revealed in a snippet, a video clip that you find, there would be like this weird like swell of music, and you would see the reflection of the character. It's like the whole time you're playing the game, unless you turn off this option in the settings, there's this like Metroid Prime-esque reflection, like a very slight reflection of a person sitting, you know, in front of the screen, and it's supposed to be that's who you're playing as, is the person sitting in front of the screen. But it really was like, it looked stupid because they just are sitting rock still like a statue the entire time, and whenever you get a significant story bit uncovered, it like there's like a little audio cue, and it makes that reflection slightly more visible for a second, and that effect just looked like ass. And I was like, you couldn't have done that even slightly better. Like, you've got full motion video in this game. You couldn't have done something where the face that's being reflected in the monitor, like, does anything besides sit perfectly still with a neutral expression the entire time you're playing the game. We did turn that setting off eventually, so maybe it did do stuff like that eventually later, but I don't expect that it did. It didn't do it for like the first half of the game at least. But that just was so like sloppy and weird, and I was like, why did you do it like that? Like, that's an interesting idea, but why? So yeah, pretty disappointing, but like, again, that concept is cool. I appreciate a uniquely told story, even if the story is trite garbage. So let's, I don't know, really hard to give a number ranking to this type of thing. I give it maybe like a 6 and a no, personally, but it is cool. I'd love to see somebody try to make like that same exact concept, but like really good at some point. That would be really neat. All right, we are on the final game on this goddamn list before I am caught up. What a momentous occasion. It's Fly Night, not like the craziest game to talk about at the end. This is a first person, it's kind of a Souls-like. Visually, it looks a ton like RuneScape. It's like a dungeon crawler type of game, the fantasy exploration, cave exploration type of deal. I played it with some friends. It's got online co-op. And it's a neat game. I didn't really vibe with it 100%. A lot of times when I play games with friends, I'm just kind of like, is the game actually fun, or are my friends just awesome? You know? So it's difficult to tell a lot of the time with multiplayer games how good the actual game is. But it was very slow, and it kind of felt like King's Field in a way. Where it kind of felt like everything's kind of underwater, but it felt intentional. It felt like the game was supposed to be like that, and it felt pretty well designed. It was like the game was designed around this sort of slower, more like meditative almost combat. It was fun. It was just challenging enough without being frustrating. It was very, very short. When we beat this game, I thought we were at the end of the first of like maybe 5 areas. Nope, it was the end of the entire game. I thought we had done like tutorial and first dungeon, but no, that was the whole thing. I was astounded at how short it was. But it's got a very cool visual style. It's got a lot of fun sort of little design flares. I like the sound design. There's this fishing mechanic that has this very cool, the way your fishing rod moves around has this really weird, elasticy, rubbery feel to it that was just itched my brain in a very specific way. I just liked looking at it. And like all the sounds of like you reeling in the fish and stuff. It was fun. And you play as flies. You're all bug people. And there's emotes that you can get. You can do the like guy who was raised by flies thing where you like rub your hands together and then rub your face. That was fun. It was a fun little just like casual weird game to play with some friends. But it's certainly, I don't even know if I would necessarily recommend it. It was certainly neat. I think if you're like big on like the RuneScape style, just visually, you might be more into it. I could appreciate it for what it was, while also acknowledging that it's like not really my type of thing. What else is there to say about it? It was fine. It wasn't too exceptional. All the boss encounters, there were like 2 boss encounters, but those were pretty cool. Interesting bosses. I just burped while talking. Interesting bosses, cool enemies just in general. There were lots of cool like bug enemies. I liked the one enemy that just stances up like a fighting game character and just does like Street Fighter moves on you. That shit was super funny. Like it was like a blue beetle that does that. It was fun and neat and atmospheric and had a cool art style, but it was very short and kind of unfulfilling from how short it was. I think there's going to be a Fly Night 2. I think, if I recall correctly, there's going to be either a big update to the game that adds more content, or there's going to be just a full-on sequel, which maybe that will fix the issue of the substantiality of it, potentially. So, cool game. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but it was fun enough. I'd give it like a 7. I think that's fair. And that's it. I'm fucking caught up, guys. Spoiler alert can go away. I did it. This is a momentous occasion. This is the longest any series has been registered as ongoing on the whole channel. It's genuinely been, I think, 5+ years of having this series be ongoing. And by golly, I finally buckled down and did it. Thanos smiling at the sunrise gif. It's finally over, and that being said, there will always be more games to play and review, so in the future, when I play enough games that I feel like it warrants doing another one of these review streams, and I have the hankering to talk about some games, then we will do so. But right now, I tell you, there's something I really want to do, which is download this file. I'm going to make a duplicate of this. It always takes ages to download something when I'm streaming. And then I'm going to import it into a blank document. I want to sort it. I want to sort by column. I want to see it all sorted out by rank. Import data. Okay. I'm just copying this so that it doesn't fuck up the original spreadsheet. And now can we just sort by column? Sort sheet A to Z. That's hard to say. There you go. Boom, baby. Here it is. Here's the full list. Maybe I'll give a little link to this in the description of this VOD at the very least. Here it is. Here they all are sorted out. Here's the sea of 8.5s. Actually, it's not that many. That's not as many as I was expecting. Damn. A lot of 9s, a lot of 9.5s. Here's the 10s. Here's the very tippy top of this list. Pikmin 1, Punch-Out Wii, Portal, Katamari Damacy Reroll, Cuphead, Pizza Tower, Mosalina, Animal Well, Dark Souls 1, and Tunic. I guess you could call those my favorite games ever, I guess. But like, I mean, looking at these 9.5s, I'm drooling. I'm literally drooling looking at these. So many bangers. So many bangers in here. Wow. And look at how it's sorted this. That's funny. And then, of course, you got all the NAs down here. No Dr. Mario. He's rubbing his tummy and smiling. And then I think it's very fitting that Power Punch 2 is at the very, very bottom of the list. That really was probably one of the most ass games I ever played. It feels cruel having Space Pug's demo be on here, but that was like an unfinished, you know, 1/10 of a level that was like a student project or something. Pico Fox Plan B. Pico Fox, I gave it a 1 out of 10. I guess that makes sense. It was pretty rudimentary. That's funny. You know, I'm kind of shocked at how even of a spread we have here. Like, there's definitely some values that are more populated than others. There's a lot of 6s. There's quite a lot of 7s. Holy shit. I think we have the most... I think 7 is the most common one. I really thought 8.5 would be the most populated field. Oh, there's a lot of 7s, a lot of 7.5s. A lot of 8s. It's like you would expect there to be a higher quantity of games in the higher ranges, just because I tend to play games that I enjoy. But a lot of those arcade game streams, a lot of like random NES games and stuff fill out the lower ranks. Yoshi, just Yoshi. What the fuck is Yoshi? You're gonna have to go back to one of these previous streams. I just got done reviewing all these. Yoshi's a forgotten falling tile puzzle game on the NES. Well, there it is. We did it, folks. That's fun to look at. It's just fun seeing it all sorted out. And it's fun looking at it like this. And I'm sure there's tons of scores and yeses or nos in here that I could edit now with the benefit of hindsight. But I don't... I think that's a fool's errand. These are kind of, you know... I've treated so much of this like it's super formal, but frankly, a lot of this is just a casual little way to just sit here and chat about games, which I've obviously enjoyed doing, despite how long I put off doing so much of this series. So, thank you guys for watching. There will be another one, God willing, but I'm gonna have to play a bunch of games before we do that. So maybe I'll go do a stream of 25 more random dog shit NES games to fill out another stream for this. Mario Kart World in shambles? Babe, I hate to break it to you. Where is it? It's on here. It got an 8.5. I put it in. It's on the list. Rate all the UFO 50 games? I made a tier list, guys, in one of the review streams. I made a tier list. I did that. I've done it all. We can't get more exhaustive. I gotta rate all the Pizza Tower demos now. No. Rate Vangers. Shut up, Joopy. Deltarune Chapter 3. I did think about that. Deltarune's on here, and I don't think my rating of Deltarune has changed with the consideration of Chapter 3. I don't remember exactly where it is. 9.5, yeah. I guess I'll edit this. I don't know, once we finish playing Chapters 3 and 4, I'll edit that. That hasn't changed. Mosolina is still a 10. Eh. Rate the minimap Campanella 3 games. Now, I'll just do my Dum Dum Mystery Flavor tier list next, I think. But thank you all for watching. I'm just gonna dip. Is there anybody worth rating right now for any reason? Oh, Northern Lions playing Clubhouse games. That's awesome. He was playing Mario Kart earlier, and now he's playing fucking Moncala online on the Nintendo Switch instead of playing Mosolina. Unfucking believable. Oh, the Game Awards. Summer Game Fest. What's this? Summer Game Fest begins in 11 minutes. Well, I'm not rating them. World premieres plus more with Soulframe Twitch drop. I didn't know this was a thing. Summer Game Fest. Well, I will not be reacting to that. Sorry. Maybe there'll be something cool in it. Maybe Bloodborne 2. We'll only know later. For now, I take my leave. And you know what? Actually, there's one last thing. There's one last spreadsheet that we gotta look at. It's this one. Look how, by the way, how close to the top of the list it is. Just down here. Boom. Now that such a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. I feel as though I could fly. Now it's all, there's no red until very far down the list. I suppose Deltarune. It's open-ended. I said it as open-ended, so it doesn't say ongoing. I think that's fair. I don't think there's any red on this list right now, yeah. Bit of a cop-out to say Mario Kart World and Deltarune are both open-ended, but they are. We are caught up, technically, on every ongoing series that was categorized as ongoing. It's my own categorization, obviously, but, that feels pretty good. That feels pretty damn good. Alright, catch you in the next one. We'll do more Deltarune later today, probably. And possibly more Mario Kart kind of soonish. I imagine we'll probably do at least one more stream relatively soon. And other delightful things to come. NES stuff, I still haven't quite exhausted the NES stuff that I want to play. So I might go back to that kind of soon. But who knows what exactly the future will hold. Alright, take it easy, everybody.